yard.
Hmm?
It's a brick in the yard.
I'm waiting on my go ahead over here.
Oh, got it.
Y'all ready?
Ready?
Yes.
Yep.
I'd like to call to order the January 12th, 2021 meeting to order. First thing is, we would stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, Ernie, lead us on the pledge of allegiance.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first thing on the agenda is public comments. Any public comments? Here, no public comments. We have a group that wants to present something to us. If we could just jump in here real quick, and that way they can go back to the job.
That's great.
David, you want to introduce your group and what it's about?
Yes, sir. So we have a group today. I don't want to steal any of their thunder, but they're going to make a presentation to us about an opportunity that we have to work with neighboring county on a project possibly. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chris. Chris Bryant. So Chris, if you could, y'all.
Why don't you
But
introduce-
they're members of the Amherst Ag Committee. Is that correct? Yeah. Thank y'all for coming.
This one here before. Okay. Full size.
Need to drop the lights. That's good.
Can we stay down? Well, here, because we got a problem, Chris.
Right, well, my name's Chris Bryant, I'm a native of Nelson County, but, I'm on the Amherst Ag Board. I'm on the, Amherst County Ag Committee. The Ag Committee for the last several years have been working on several projects. One was, to promote agritourism for the county and also promote agriculture in the county of Amherst. One of the projects that we have been working on was a farmer's market, also handling a county fair, and also the possibility of starting an ag complex, which would also be used for additional CTE training. I think over the last several years, we've kind of all realized there's a need for a place to hold events that would be large enough to possibly hold rodeos, county fairs, large, venues like weddings and stuff like that, could possibly be used in a facility like this. But what we would like to mimic is something similar to what they did down in Chatham. I don't know if everybody's had the opportunity to visit that facility, but it is a very nice facility that is used for different events and agriculture for that particular area. The pictures that we're gonna go through is just kind of an idea of what we'd like to see happen here locally. We're hoping to be able to do this as a regional project with Amherst and Nelson being the main counties involved, but also the possibility of reaching out to even the surrounding counties around Amherst and Nelson County. The pictures that we have here are the main pictures of the building that's in Chatham. We're just gonna go through a few slides and kind of tell you what our vision is and what we'd like to see. And then if you have any questions, feel free to stop us anytime and ask. But, you know, one of the big questions that you have anytime you start a project like this is how you're gonna pay for it. And, you know, getting involved with something like this is gonna take a big commitment from either one or two counties or even more counties to get it off the ground. And one way they're able to pay for this facility in Chatham is this part here shows 5 different rental spaces. And they use it for office rental. Farm Bureau was a big contributor to help get this facility started. They are also one of the renters that's still using this facility. But this first picture is a picture of some of the office space. This is actually the Farm Bureau office that's at the Chatham facility. This is the large arena where they show livestock. They have rodeos. Right now it's being rented out to different events. One is a inside dirt bike track. They also have horseback riding inside. This particular facility is 350 feet by 450 feet in size, so it's a pretty large area that would sit almost 3,300 feet. So it's a lot of seating area in that facility as well. One of the ways they help pay for this facility, they do sponsorships along the wall with banners. I know this is probably not a very good picture of that, but if you look at the picture to the right, the banner sponsorship generates almost $60,000 a year in revenue to help keep this facility open. These are some pictures from the exterior part of the facility. As you can see, one of the covered areas was recently added on to the end of the main arena. The other 2 pictures are showing access doors for different types of events that would be held inside the facility. Main entrance is done through a central hallway. And one thing that was thought up when they designed this, they also have a training classroom side and they have the main arena side. And the hallway kind of serves both. The thing that's nice about that is one restroom facility that accommodates whether you have a large event in the arena that has access from that side, or if you're doing training classes, they have access from the opposite side. But they received a lot of tobacco money to establish this ag complex. So the picture on the left is kind of some pictures of the tobacco museum that they have there. It's mostly paintings and it's a few relics, but not a whole lot of other stuff. This right picture shows another hallway. This is a small kitchen area that they use for catered events, like if they have a caterer come in for an event, they do have a little small kitchen area that they can work out of. And then these are some of the training rooms for the different meetings. They have these broken into 3 different sections, or you can rent it out all as one section. Average rent per smaller room is $450 a day. And then if you rent out all 3, that's a little over $1,200 a day to rent out all 3 rooms at one time. They do have them divided with partitions. And so if you needed more space, you could pretty much set it up whichever way you would like. They have an equestrian facility on the back side of the property. If they're doing horse shows and events, you know, they use this facility to accommodate the number of animals that they may have for that event. They also have other riding events and stuff that they use the equestrian facility for. But one way that they were able to pay for the equestrian facility, they did sponsorships on each gate that they have there. So, you know, they've looked into a lot of different avenues on trying to generate income to keep this facility open. The other thing that they have is also a cattle working facility with scale squeeze chutes and the holding facility. You know, that's something that we talked about, that if you had a facility like that, you could possibly have a vet for a day on weekends or something. And if people wanted to bring their local livestock in, you could offer a service of vaccinations and tagging and possibly even AI and livestock locally here at a certain price that would be affordable to the local farmers. And I think that would benefit a lot of them that may not have the means to work their cattle properly too. But they have a very well laid out facility. They also have it laid out, they were having rodeos or stuff like that, that they would have holding facilities that would have water and food as well.
Yes, backing up just a little bit, if we're working on the cattle and stuff, that's something that we could bring in kids on weekends and stuff and train them and let them see what it's all about.
Yeah.
So how to maintain the cattle.
Well, you know, one thing that we had talked about as an ag committee, the average age of a farmer is in his 60s now. And so the cattle industry, if it's going to stay part of a big part of Amherst and Nelson and surrounding counties, you got to get the youth involved and learning a little bit about it. And if we had a facility like this that was centrally located between both counties, they could do programs through the high school that could also benefit from the use of a facility like this. I know there's a lot of careers that are out there that have a lot to do with raising livestock that may not necessarily be what you see here in the county, but if you had a place to train the kids at, I think it could be, you know, used heavily by both counties. And, you know, would definitely be an asset to the local farmers too. I mean, if you figure the average age is in the 60s to work on a herd of cattle, even if you had 20 heads, if you had a facility to care to that could help you with the vaccinations, the tagging, and everything else that goes along with that, it would definitely be a great asset for the local farmers.
Question real quick. Do they do auctions there?
They do hold some special sales there as well.
Okay.
Now, this facility, if you had a facility like that, you wouldn't be limited.
Right.
Holding anything there.
Sure.
If you want to do sheep, cattle, pig, you know, you can pretty much, you know, run pretty much anything through that facility.
And truly, it could be set up where it's available to rent to somebody, to a group that wants to hold an auction or a sale or something. It wouldn't have to be managed by this entity that has the facility. It could be an outside group that comes in, rents it for X number of dollars for the day, and then they can have a sale.
That's
Right.
correct.
Yeah.
But you can see, a lot of the areas in this facility, are very well maintained. The cattle facility is fairly new, and that's probably why it looks as good as it does, but, you know, there are a lot of questions when you go to doing something like this. And, let me see if I can get through these, going backwards on, please.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
All right.
Chris, I've got a question. What are the staffing needs for a facility of that size?
The basic staffing needs for the, facility that they have in Chatham is about 5 people, that work full-time there. The other ones, you've got a main facilities manager whose responsibility is to, generate, companies and, organizations coming in and renting a space. The other, 4 or more for setup and takedown, help. If you do an event there, you have to move gates, you have to maintain the arena, you have to maintain the area around the, facility. So that's where the majority of the, labor would be used. The, facility director, as far as generating income, he does that by selling, rental space. And, the way they did it in Chatham, it started out as a guaranteed income, but each year it's reduced by the guarantee to a commission base. So it gives them a time to get their feet wet and start generating some events in the facility. And then at the end of the contract, it's basically a straight commission type, income. So, you know, you want to put somebody in there that's got the contacts, that's going to be able to reach out and, generate enough income to, make the place pay for itself.
Is Chatham owns this facility?
The ownership, I'm not 100% sure how it's laid out. I could do some research on that to find out exactly if it's the county of Pennsylvania. I think it's Pennsylvania County that probably owns the majority interest in the facility, but it was a lot of the investments that came in outside. Like Farm Bureau was a very big investor in this. There were some very large grants that helped pay for this facility. And some of that is the same thing that we would be going after, to do it if we do it as a 2-county or 3-county or 4-county facility. One thing that we're looking at, where we propose to do this, is equal distance between the high school in Nelson County and the high school in Amherst County. So as far as benefiting counties, Amherst and Nelson would have the greatest benefit if we could do this at that location. The location that we're looking at, as we get to the end of this, I've got a few pictures of it, but probably most of you are fairly familiar where it's at, but we can discuss why we think that location would best suit both counties. One of the other things that they do at the Chatham complex, they do have a county farmer's market. And this is originally the building on the left was where it started. And then the building here is what they have available now. And that would be something that may also play into effect on this location down the road. That maybe we could do a 2-county, 3-county farmer's market right on 29 where it would have good visibility and good access. The way they designed this, they have the people that are setting up at the farmer's market back under the end of the building. Each one rents a booth space. All of them have water and electric. And if you look at the facility, it's designed where the customers can walk down the center and shop from either side. They also have restroom facilities built into all their, outside, structures as well. So you don't have to open up the entire facility to have restroom facilities, just if you were having a farmer's market. So it was pretty, good, design, the way they set that building up. Another thing they also did, this is kind of a picture of the whole complex at a distance. But if you notice, everything is fenced in. And that's something, if we did an ag complex and we were gonna be using live animals, that probably would be very important, as far as keeping the animals safe in a closed-in area. And if one was to get away, you wouldn't have to worry about them ending up 5 miles away. So, and that's also an opportunity for, education for both, schools, teaching them, different types of fencing and stuff like that. So, this is the proposed ag complex property. If you're not familiar with this property, it's a 301 acre farm that's for sale just across the Tide River Bridge as you enter into Amherst County. It used to be part of the Black Eagle Farm, that most people are probably familiar with. This is one of the buildings that is still on the piece of property that could be utilized for, different, ag events. It does need some restoration, but, it's still pretty structurally sound, to still do different events out of that particular building. If you look up here, this is kind of on top of the hill. There used to be an old house site, where the left-hand picture is. There's also a well on site on that property, but there are multiple streams coming off that property. One thing that we would have to consider is, doing a site plan and see if it's a feasibility plan to see if it's enough water and, drain fields to accommodate a facility like what we're trying to, develop. But, if, there's been a lot of ideas thrown out there of what we could do with it to help generate money. The one in Chatham, they actually use that as a wedding venue sometimes. So people rent it for weddings, they rent it for big, get-togethers. I think the center, inside area holds around 1,200 people. So it's a good sized facility. We could consider doing something like that if we do a ag complex on this piece of property as well. One advantage that we would have, that this piece of property does have a lot of real good views. These are a few more of the pictures of the property. And that, instead of going in with 100% of the total expenses, you do have a phone tower that generates about $1,500 a month. That would also help with a little bit of the expense of getting this thing off the ground. But we know that's just a drop in the bucket compared to what expenses we would be looking at to develop this into an ag complex. But I think that's probably about all I have photo-wise. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. If I can't answer them, Ed may know, or but do y'all have any questions? Or,
Why don't you introduce the two guys with you?
what Ed said? And Eric, he's new with us. He is an extension agent for Amherst County now. And you'll probably see a lot more of him, just because I think he will work some with the Nelson County Extension Service as well. But Ed Sale, he's with Farm Bureau Insurance. And most people that run across him in Nelson or Amherst County. And like I say, I run a John Deere store in Amherst County. I've been doing it for 20-something years. But I've been a resident of Nelson County all my life. I graduated same year that David graduated from high school. And
You still live here?
Yeah. But, I'd like to see something like this happen. One thing that I've seen, in my lifetime, from looking at, the children that are coming out of the county now, a lot of them don't have the opportunities that we had growing up. I know from the, very young age, we were able to hold jobs. Now, they won't even look at you unless you're 15 or 16 years of age to even hire you, and if they do hire you, you're kind of limited. And if we were to do a school out of this facility, then I think we wouldn't be as limited on some of the trades that we could possibly teach our youth that we are with the high schools now. I know with the risk management in place at a lot of the local schools, it's making it a lot more difficult to give these kids hands-on experience. And I think if we were able to develop a facility like this, we could make a big difference in the workforce that's coming out of these schools when they turn 18. And not only the high schools could benefit from this, we could do adult education at night through a facility like that. And right now, if somebody wants to learn a particular skill that is either offered in Charlottesville or Lynchburg, they've got to drive 35, 40 minutes to get there. And they don't really have an option for any of that locally here. And that's what we're proposing, is that we can work as multiple counties together and get a project like this off the ground that would benefit everybody in both counties. But that's about all I have this week.
Yeah, and I have something I want to add in there, because I know these discussions have been, talked about, and I've had a chance to interact with some more stakeholders potentially. This project can be more than just obviously ag. One thing that both counties lack is an economies of scale of students to get programs. One big conversation piece that we've had here in Nelson County, and we've worked hard, and Dr. Eagle can correct me, is we're one of the first to offer renewable energy, career and technical certifications, and seeing that come to fruition and see. But the biggest issue you have is the number of students. So when we have this facility that's halfway between the two, finally we can have, as opposed to our just 7, now we can have 15 that the community college system is looking for. And I see huge opportunity here and marrying in some of those, STEM related classes, in today's farmer, some of them are like IT guys, those tractors are smarter than anything that you've ever hopped on ever, in some scenarios. And I think there's a huge opportunity for, obviously, agriculture being the fulcrum of our culture here in Nelson County, but to the future jobs that are coming. I mean, this can lead into how we can farm hemp on a better way, and the more economies of scale like Southwest, and how we can process fibers, and maybe having the facility that has that. I think it's a wonderful and exciting potential, and I think by doing it on this regional basis can justify some economies of scales that we as Nelson County and our school system struggle with. It's the economies of scale that sometimes just doesn't exist. But when we do it with those two high schools together, and shoot, maybe that partnership can extend on a limited basis to other counties and make that a better thing for all of our region. And I can't be more excited.
All right, we're gonna stop this right now.
I
and we can,
got one more question.
yeah, but then we'll open it up for this. We'll do some discussion at the end of the meeting.
Okay, I have a question for
Okay,
Mr. Bryan.
go ahead.
I'm looking at the website and it mentions that the Chatham Complex is owned and operated by a 501c3 that's represented by farmers and individuals covering 7 counties. Is that the model that you're looking at?
We would be trying to mirror what they did in Chatham. You say it's a 501c3?
Yeah.
There's another one in Rockbridge that, but we just not eligible for that tobacco money.
I'd say, I think a lot of tobacco money went into that
Yeah,
facility.
sure. Yeah. All right, we thank you very much,
Thank you, guys.
and we will definitely discuss this more this evening sometime. but I know David and Jesse has met with this group before. And David and I met last night with them, and we'll discuss that later. We got some things we got to get done. But thank y'all gentlemen very much. Okay, next is reorganization of the board and annual organizational meeting. At this time, I will turn the chair over to Mr. Carter to elect a chairman and vice chairman.
As Mr. Harvey said, this is the annual organizational meeting of the board.
Steve, let me stop you. I had something I want to do very early and I forgot to do it too. We need to recognize that new grandfather here who became a grandfather on the 23rd of December, was a 9-pound young lady named Vivian. So we want to recognize her and put her in the minutes so that we've done that before, that, but it's definitely a change in scenery in your household, hadn't it, Steve? And at the same time, Steve was going through the COVID, so. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. So I said, this is the annual organizational meeting of the board as required by state law. If I may, I'll just suggest to the board, historical precedent would have Mr. Reed as chairman and Mr. Rutherford as vice chairman. If the board is comfortable with that, then a motion could just be made to appoint both those gentlemen in those capacities. Otherwise, I would just go through individual nominations.
Okay. All right, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Ernie Reed to be the chair of the Nelson County Board of Supervisors for the 2021 year. And I also would like to nominate Jesse Rutherford to be the vice chair for the same season.
Second.
Okay, motion's made. If there are any other nominations or any other considerations, now would be the time to present them. Otherwise, I'm going to close that and ask for a roll call. Hearing none, Grace?
Mr. Barton,
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yes.
Mr. Harvey,
Yes,
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Mr. Reed?
now he turns it back over to you. There's your hammer.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Tommy. You got a lot of shoes that have a lot of age on them. I'm really happy to have an opportunity to try to do that. So thank you for that. So the first thing on the agenda is Resolution R 2021-01, the annual organizational meeting of the board. Do we normally read that resolution?
No, the board would just consider page 2 if you're comfortable with the individuals listed in the various capacities listed there on page 2 of the resolution.
Yeah, we need to probably go through that.
So page 2 is the list of appointments. And I'll just go through and read those.
Well, let me get my hand on it there.
It's pages 12 and 13. In the back.
Just read them out, each one individually.
Board of Supervisors appointments for calendar year 2021 shall be as follows. Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, Jesse Rutherford and Dylan Bishop. Director of Emergency Services, Thomas Harvey. Emergency Services Coordinator, Russell Gibson. Piedmont Workforce Network Council, Robert Barton. Clerk to the Nelson County Board of Supervisors, Stephen Carter. Deputy Clerk to the Nelson County Board of Supervisors, Grace Moyer. Zoning Administrator, Dylan Bishop. Hazardous Materials Coordinator, Russell Gibson. Thomas Jefferson EMS Council, Russell Gibson. Nelson County EMS Council, David Carr. Thomas Jefferson Community Criminal Justice Board, Daniel Rutherford.
Hold on just 1 second. Did you say,
Daniel's fine with that.
okay.
Yeah.
That's not the right thing, but, sorry.
Nelson County Social Services Board, Robert Barton. And Nelson County Planning Commission, Ernie Reed.
I would like to nominate Jesse for the social services, unless you object to it.
What? Join me on the
No,
committee?
just to make Jesse the representative.
No, I would just object to that. Why would you, what was your reason?
Overall, that's one of the higher ones that, we kind of swap them around.
I found that it was a complicated one, and it took a while to learn what you were doing. And I kind of like being on it. And so I object.
Mr. Harvey, I'm fine with that. I would like to sit on that board in the following year. Does that make sense?
Well, we can cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, we do the appointments once a year.
That's fine.
So,
Okay. Just so to know, at some point I'd like to have potential on that.
okay, so for our needs today, I'm looking for a motion.
So wait a minute, on the other one, were you wanting to stay on the planning commission? Because I was willing to do that if this other stuff, you didn't want to do it.
I would really enjoy staying on the Planning Commission. We were short a couple meetings this year and I missed one, and I'd be happy and pleased and honored to stay on the Planning Commission.
Okay. So there's no changes to the list.
So I'm looking for a motion.
I move that we approve the list of appointments and things that we have listed.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution R 2021-01.
Mr. Park?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda.
You need to make that addition.
I'd like to make an addition to the consent agenda, which would be Resolution R 2021-04, Nelson County Board of Supervisors resolution regarding electronic meetings of public bodies. We had passed an almost identical motion to this months back. It was only good for a limited period of time, and that time has expired. And we would like to get this back into place so that it would be possible for the Board of Supervisors to meet through video conferencing if necessary.
I move we approve the consent agenda with the changes Chairman just mentioned.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Your mic is not on.
Yes.
I was trying to say.
Thanks. Now we're doing presentations that were all previously on the agenda, starting with the VDON report. Mr. Brown.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Reed. First, the biggest thing that I'd like to report to the board is our progress on the Route 664 Reach Gap situation that we've been occurring. David's been kind enough to keep me informed on that, and I appreciate that, Mr. Park. Thank you so much. We do have a problem up there. There's been a lot of incidents up there with tractor trailers getting hung up and stuck on the mountain. VDOT is pursuing a traffic study to prohibit through tractor trailers on 664 in Nelson and Augusta County. We are working jointly with Lynchburg District, VDOT, and Stanton District. We do expect our traffic study to be finished up very soon. It may be even this week. After that study is complete, we will review it jointly as two jointly in the Lynchburg District and Stanton District to make sure that we are complete and thorough. And after that, it would go to our state traffic engineer for his concurrence and approval, as well as the commissioner of VDOT. So we're still looking at, maybe a couple of weeks out before this is actually approved, but it is well in the works. We have taken additional measures. We put our message boards up, and I'm pretty sure it's one over in Augusta County again. And also, we put an additional portable message board with a message up on top of Reed's Gap to warn the truckers coming after they cross the parkway that there's a sharp curve and to use caution. That's where that matter stands at right now. And I know there's been a lot of interest and a lot of folks on that, but they won't give you all a report on that today. So with that, I really don't have a whole lot of other VDOT issues to report. We're doing our normal activities. We've been having a few slick roads up in the mountains there. We have responded to those. We're doing a lot of normal maintenance operations, and just hoping we can get through this winter and not be impacted as much as we have in other winters. So, I'll be glad to field any questions or concerns that you have at this time. Steve, are we going to do the 6-year plan today? We're not.
Next month.
Next month, okay. Yes, sir.
Everyone's pretty happy. Well, almost.
Excuse me. I'm used to Mr. Harvey doing a roll. Anyways, I do have a slight concern, and I believe you should speak with VSP and the parties at large in regards to the build out along 29. State Trooper have some opinion, kind of what they've seen. There's a concern with the long widths of 29, like we're talking miles and miles, where they've been shutting down the shoulder, where it's made some hazards in regards to truckers, and trying to make certain turns. My suggestion is that if you could outreach to the leadership in Virginia State Police and maybe even the Sheriff's Office and kind of get an idea for what the impacts to traffic are. I do know that there was a couple instances that may not have been related directly to that, but could have been a factor.
And you're talking about, Jesse, the shoulder closures due
Yes,
to fiber installation all up and down to 29.
Yeah, you said that's Amazon, right?
Well, some of it is, and I think it's on
Facebook.
Facebook, and somebody's got a main cable. And I think, I did question that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm just saying, I know they did their build out, on Route 29, down south where the road's a little bit straighter. I think where you're running into scenarios, you're now seeing that build out on Old 29, and some of the hazards of certain curves and certain places. And, they're hitting rocks, so they got some heavy duty, long time spans that they're working on. And I understand, wanting to get it done, we just need if there's a way that we can maybe, shorten that. And I think they're almost out of Nelson County now, so at this point, they're probably gonna be out of
We can certainly look at the standards in the worker protection manual to make sure that they're not exceeding the lengths of the allowable
Yes,
right lane closures.
yes.
And even if they are, if it's still an unsafe situation, we can certainly.
There's just been some places where, man, it would have been great if they shut it down, in short glimpses and not long spans, because some of these truckers have certain turns that they gotta make, and, they're either going 15 miles an hour, or, you got somebody going way too fast in the right lane now. So that would just be my suggestion. Outreach to the law enforcement and see how interactions have been.
It looks like a total different standard that we had to adhere to when we did our project, 26 miles of it. I mean, we couldn't do nowhere near the stuff that they're doing.
They do have a lot of equipment on the road,
I ain't never seen many excavators in a mile span.
excavators, on the bore machines,
Tons.
directional bore machines.
Yeah, but I mean, and this might be a memo to pass on to Culpeper, because they're almost into Alamo at this point, so.
I have noticed they are gonna have a significant punch list before we close that permit out. I've been talking to our permit people, they've left a lot of rocks laying around. There's gonna be some settlement in some of those pits.
Right.
And also they've got some, splice boxes that, when we mow or boom ax, we're gonna chop them up. So they're gonna have to do some work.
I have more comments. 694 Naked Mountain Road over in Shipman. There is a creek culvert, probably about halfway down the gravel portion. It ate away the shoulder pretty bad, and there's been some orange cones sitting beside it there for a bit. And that's obviously, we've had some fairly substantial rains in the past. It'd be nice if somebody would take a look and try to fix that and see what the mitigation is. Orange cones, I don't know what the standard is for leaving orange cones up, but they've been there for a month or two.
Well, I'm not real aware of what's going on right there, Jesse. But,
Yeah, it's just gravel.
I don't know if it's a pipe replacement or.
The creek took a good chunk of that water with it. So, not water, gravel with it. So. At this time, I have nothing else.
Mr. Park?
Nothing additional to what we've talked about already, so thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Harvey?
There's a couple potholes on 151 it may not be that big around. I mean, you hit them and it feels like it's going to shake your vehicle. I reckon I put some at cold patch or something. And it looks like they did do the sides of the road in the areas I talked to you about.
Yeah,
I mean, some of them things, I mean, they got over a foot deep. But yeah, that's been done. But there are several holes that you can't hardly miss on any road. If they just look at them. That's it.
okay.
Mr. Burton.
Yeah.
You have anything?
No.
Okay. Mr. Brown, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Steve, have anything?
Good.
Okay.
Sometimes they count it with us, so.
If we could get the updated 6-year plan, that'd be great. See where we're at.
Well, it hasn't been updated. It's the same plan that we would do the public hearing on for.
Sure. What I mean is, like, if there's any completions since the last one.
We'll ask Robert for that.
Yeah. Because I know Ariel and High Peak were around the corner, so we'll see where they were at.
And just in case anybody was wondering, as of the 7th of January, We were up to 5 tractor trailers been stuck on Reed's Gap on the 7th. None since the 7th, knock on wood, but 5 in the first 7 days. Yeah.
5 drivers unlikely to do it again. Yeah. Okay, we have a presentation from Mr. Foley on the fiscal year 20 audit report.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for having me here today. My name is David Foley. I'm a partner with Robinson Farmer Cox Associates, and I was the audit manager for the county's fiscal year end June 30th, 2020 audit. And we have completed that audit and here to present the results of that to you all. There are 3, as part of the audit that we do for the county, there's 3 main pieces to the audit. One, of course, is we audit the financial statements of the county to make sure that the financial statements have been prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. 2 other pieces of the audit that we do in accordance with government auditing standards. One is, in addition to just looking at the numbers themselves, we look at the county's internal controls that it has over financial reporting. So we'll review those controls and test those to make sure that they're operating as they should. And then the third and final piece of the audit that we do is the federal compliance audit. And that is basically for the federal grant programs that the county has. There's various compliance requirements that the county has to comply with when it's expending its major federal grant programs. So as part of the audit, OMB provides a compliance supplement that lists those various requirements. So as part of the audit, we go through for the major federal programs, we go through those grant requirements to make sure that the county is complying with its major federal grant program compliance requirements. So those are the 3 main pieces of the audit that we do. So as such, included in the county's audited financial statements, there are 3 different reports from us that communicate the results of the audit to you all. The first is towards the front of the report. It's actually numbered page 1. And this is our independent auditor's report. And in this report, we state we did perform an audit on the county's financial statements. This report talks about management's responsibility for the financial statements, which management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements. This report talks about our responsibilities as auditors, which we are to issue an opinion on the county's financial statements. And flipping over to page 2 of this report at the top is the opinion that we have issued on the county's financial statements. And we have issued an unmodified opinion on the county's financial statements, which is the cleanest opinion an auditor can give on the set of financial statements. Basically, an unmodified opinion means that the county's financial statements have been prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. The other 2 reports from us are included in the back, towards the back of the report, in the compliance section. The first report back in this section is on page 144. And this is our report over the county's internal control over financial reporting. This report was clean as well. We noted no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in the county's internal controls over financial reporting. We feel that the county does have strong internal controls in place over its financial reporting. And then 2 pages over is our the third and final report from us. And this is our report over the county's compliance with its major federal grant programs. This report was clean as well. No significant deficiencies or material weaknesses were noted as part of the audit and as far as the county's compliance with its federal grant programs. In addition, no other items of non-compliance were noted as part of the audit. So all three reports from us are clean. Does another clean audit for the county this year. And then just want to highlight just a couple financial statements included in the financial report. And the first of those is on page 19. And page 19 is the balance sheet for the county's governmental funds. So this statement reports the total assets, liabilities, and deferred inflows, and then the fund balances for the county's governmental funds. And there are different columns on the statement for the various governmental funds that the county has. The first column is the general fund, which is the county's main operating fund. As we can see, these numbers are as of the end of the fiscal year, so as of the end of June 30th, 2020. The county's general fund had $40.4 million in total assets compared to about $15 million of liabilities and deferred inflows. And then as we can see down towards the bottom shows the total fund balance for the county's general fund. So total fund balance was $25.4 million, and of that, $25.2 million is unassigned fund balance. So still at the end of the fiscal year, the county had a healthy fund balance. The last thing I wanted to point out is on page 21. This is Exhibit 5. This shows the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. So about halfway down the page, we can see the total revenues for the county, $37.4 million, and then compared for the general fund, $36.5 million total expenditures, and then about 3/4 of the way down, we can see the change in fund balance, the decrease in the county's fund balance during the fiscal year. Again, these are the two statements I like to point out because these are the governmental fund statements which kind of follow the way the county operates. In addition to the audited financial statements themselves, we also issue our communication letter with those charged with governance. It's just a separate letter that we issue outside of the audited financial statements themselves. What this letter is various things that we have to communicate at the end of an audit to you all, and we do so in the form of this communication letter. Just briefly go through those. Some qualitative aspects of accounting practices. Again, management's responsible for the selection and appropriate use of accounting policies. Accounting estimates are an integral part of preparing the financial statements. Difficulties encountered in performing the audit. We had no difficulties in dealing with management as part of the audit. If we had any, we have to disclose the nature of those to you all. Really, Steve and Candy and really all the county staff do an excellent job, not only of preparing for us to come on site and have a slew of documents ready for us to get started, but they also do an excellent job of pulling any additional documents that request while we're there. Also do an excellent job of answering any questions that we have throughout the audit. We certainly understand while we're there doing the audit, they have their normal jobs that they're having to deal with as well. But they do an excellent job of working with us to allow us to get the audit completed. Just a couple, few more items to communicate. Corrected or uncorrected misstatements. Any audit adjustments that we proposed were posted to the county's accounting system, so the county's accounting system matches what's included in the audited financial statements. Disagreements with management. We had no disagreements with management. As part in conducting the audit. Again, if we had any disagreements, we'd have to communicate those to you all. Management representations, we do request certain representations from management that we get in the form of a signed representation letter. And then the last thing, management's consultations with other independent accountants. As far as where management did not consult with any other independent accountants in terms of second opinion job. But again, those are just the required communications we have to make to you all at the end of an audit. But that's all I have, but I'd be happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Thank you for that fabulous presentation. Are there any questions from anyone?
Yes, there was a piece in here that I thought was interesting as it relates to unavailable revenue taxes of 12 million. Can you, or maybe Candy or either one of you, what is that? On page 19.
So what that is you have a number pretty similar up to up at the top. There's property taxes receivable. So that includes all property taxes that have been either that have been billed and levied that have not yet been collected. Now, a big piece of that also includes the second half collection, which is actually not. So it's not all just delinquent taxes. So that's total property taxes, including the second half of the 2020 tax year. And so what the unavailable is any of that 12.8 million that hasn't been collected, at least within the next 60 days of the fiscal year, is deferred and unavailable revenue because it hasn't come in close enough to the end of the fiscal year. So basically, it's uncollected taxes that have not been collected within the first 2 months of the next fiscal year.
Okay.
And there's actually a note on page, if you look at page 91, it provides a breakdown of what that the 12.7 million is. So of the 12.7 million, 1.8 million represents property taxes that have been levied and or due and have not yet been collected. So those are your delinquent property taxes. Then we have 10.6 million, which is the second half installment, which isn't even due yet. That installment's not due till December 5th. But accounting standards make you recognize, because it was levied as of July 1, or January 1, standards require that you show that receivable, but then it's also offset by a liability. And then the last piece of that is you had 276,000 of prepaid property taxes. So those are second half 2020 collections that were paid prior to the fiscal year.
Okay.
Kind of a long-winded answer.
Sure, I got you. Yeah.
Jesse, you good?
Yes, I have no more questions.
Okay. Mr. Harvey?
I'm good.
Mr. Barton? Good? Clark? Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for a wonderful audit, and thank you to Candy and Steve and staff for doing this again. It's a great habit to do this year after year. Thank you.
And to come up with the results.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dave.
Brings us to new and unfinished business. The first item there is reevaluation of special use permit application, 2020-04, extended stay campground.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Dylan.
Some materials for you.
Who's got those?
I only have one of these if you guys have.
That was just a note of part of
Happy New Year, everyone. Okay, so I will go over a brief overview of this application. It is a special use permit application for an extended stay campground at 6787 Taylor Creek Road. The 16.4 acre parcel zoned A1 agricultural owned by Jackie Whalen. This came to the planning commission in August, who recommended approval of the application with the condition that the campground be limited to one site. In October, the board of supervisors held their public hearing. There will not be a second one today. This was delayed until today's meeting to address some issues regarding the well cap on the septic and the site location. So the documents I've just handed you, the site is circled on the map there, so it's the one campsite that will be there. This is also for an extended stay, so that would allow a tenant to stay up to 6 months at a time. The tenant would be bringing their own travel trailer motorhome to the site, and existing utilities are approved by the health department. Some of the board's concerns were the condition of the septic. The health department approved this application and did work with the owner to get the well cap fixed on that, which is the picture that's being passed around to you guys. And then the site location's been established as well. The current tenant is no longer on the property. So right now it's vacant. The board has approved a similar application for a single site campground. And that is because currently our ordinance, a campground is defined as any place used for transient camping where compensation is expected to stay in a tent, travel trailer, or motorhome, and require the provision of potable water and sanitary facilities. So where we get stuck with that is a travel trailer is defined as a vehicular portable structure built on a chassis designed as a temporary dwelling for travel, recreational, and vacation uses. So what we're running into is people with tiny homes and RVs would like to camp on their site for longer than the 10 days and accept compensation to allow it to be rented out for transient lodging. The applicant owner is here if you guys have any questions. And if you have any questions for me as well.
To me, it's just, we're trying to circumvent the ordinance. I mean, how do you have a campground with one trailer?
I understand it's something our office is working on with other departments, with the health department and with the building inspections office to try and figure out how to address this. With the way the current definitions are written, it doesn't specify how many campsites, so it just says any place used for transient lodging and a temporary facility. So when people come to us, that's the only way that we can approve something like that. Some options that we are looking at, the health department doesn't classify a property as a campground unless they have 3 or more sites. That's one option we have discussed taking to the planning commission, working with the health department to fit closer into their regulations, which would allow people to rent out their sites, their camping sites, which would still require water and sewer for the health department if it's 2 sites. Now, once you hit that 3rd site is when it would come back as a special use permit. So that's something we may take to the planning commission to, close that loophole. If we think it's in the county's best interest to allow owners to rent out their property for RVs or tent sites if it's only 2 of them. So that's something that may be coming forward to you guys to consider. For the current application, as it sits, the board has issued a similar one in the past. That one, the applicant was permanently placing a travel trailer on the property, and that one could not get approved as a dwelling because it did not meet building code. So that's where we all need to come together, is with health department, building inspections, and zoning and planning to address these tiny homes, RVs, things that don't really fit or match the campground definition.
The board could just defer this until the work comes back from the planning commission. You know, you're not under any obligation to decide this today.
The board does have a year to vote on special use permits. The applicant, the owner, is here. If you'd like to hear from her. As far as going to the planning commission, this would go within the next few months. It's not on the docket for the next month or two.
I have a question. Is there a termination on this? Since it's a campsite, you would assume, I would assume that it's not a permanent residence. So is there a period of time that one may occupy under a campground site?
For this campsite,
Yes.
so the applicant's requesting to allow up to 6 months at a time. So not as a permanent residence, it's just for transient lodging, but they're requesting up to 6 months at a time. Without the extended stay aspect of it, it's 30 days at a time, which the board has the option to not allow that as well.
Is this what's expected, or is the person expected to rent semi-permanently? This person,
So the current owner, there was a farmhouse on the property that burned down a number of years ago. And the owner was under the impression that she was grandfathered to continue renting that site out since it had utilities. In truth, in fact, that wasn't the case. Only permanent structures can be grandfathered. And then they only have 2 years from the date of the incident to rebuild it in that footprint. So the owner was under the impression that they were allowed to rent out the site as the residence. And she's been having RVs for travel nurses, from what I understand, and other tenants come. The most recent tenant had signed a lease agreement for a year, which is how this got started. She called us and filed a complaint that she didn't believe that she was permitted to live in a travel trailer, which was correct. So we reached out to the owner to address the violation, which a way to bring the property into compliance would be to apply for a campground permit, which would continue to allow her to rent the site out for RVs and travel trailers.
all right, so they can't rent this permanently. This can't be rented permanently.
Correct.
Under present conditions.
Correct. Not for, if someone were to build a new permanent dwelling there, that's one thing. What they're asking is to rent out the site for transient lodgers to bring in their RVs and then leave.
Right.
So what they're asking for is to be able to rent the site out to RVs, travel trailers for up to 6 months at a time.
Yeah, but you're saying one unit.
Yes, one
You're not-
site.
You're not talking about a campground, you're talking about one single unit.
Correct, which is the recommended condition from the planning commission, that the extended stay campground be approved with the one site that was shown on the drawing I gave you.
Who
So-
made these notes on these pages we got?
This is from the applicant, the owner.
That's a little misleading. It says here the tenants burned their house down in March of '08.
Is it technically possible for someone to stay there 6 months and have a 6-month lease and then sign a subsequent lease for 6 months? The same tenant?
That could be, I believe, part of the condition, that you can have a subsequent tenant for longer than 6 months.
So that was the question I was gonna ask.
Mhm.
That would be, is that right? Did the owner pay transient occupancy taxes previously? Do you know?
I do not know.
But they would be subject to the tax if this is approved? I understand, yes, but the board would probably need to make that as a condition if you approve this.
Lodging tax or occupancy tax?
Oh, it's the same logic.
Oh, okay, yes. And the other document I gave you, I forgot to mention, was a guide that we've created that we started handing out to people when they asked about what their transient lodging options. They call and say, I want an Airbnb, I want a bed and breakfast, I want a campground. So each of those come with their own sets of regulations. So we created this guide to kind of help walk people through our definitions, what's going to be required, who's involved. So I wanted to give you guys a copy of that as well, just for your reference. And it has the, all relevant definitions. And it's proved to be a great resource since we have it. And I thought of that because we put on there that anyone doing these uses needs to contact the Commissioner of Revenue for business license and lodging taxes.
This is difficult to police after 6 months, so we're gonna go look. And then if the owner would continue, as Mr. Reed asked, to renew a lease for someone who was already there for 6 months, then an enforcement proceeding or notice of violation would go forward. And you know, the history of that in the courts is it's very difficult to prevail oftentimes in those matters. And if I may, I certainly agree with Mr. Harvey that the application is more of a means to circumvent the ordinance, and it's not really a campground.
Any other questions for Ms. Bishop?
And if the thing they're talking about is more than 30 feet, it doesn't require one?
I believe you're talking about our definition for motorhome, which is
No,
referenced.
I'm not talking about motorhome. I'm talking about a camper. A camper over such and such feet, it does not require.
Our definition for travel trailer does not reference the length of the camper.
Well,
There is a reference to the length of the camper in the motorhome definition.
when I had the trouble at my house and I moved a camper in and lived in it for 2 years, I was told I wasn't required to have a permit because mine was, it was bigger than what that ordinance come under.
Were you building a home at the time, you said?
Huh?
You said you were building a home? at
No,
the
I
time?
had a mold problem and I was out of my house for 2 years. So I pulled a camp up right beside the house and lived in that. But, you know, I got the permit anyway, but, you know, I was told I didn't have to have it because of the fact that it was, I think it's 30 foot long or something like that.
I'm not familiar with that. I have to look.
And I would think that's more of a fact that you're owner occupied, you know, you weren't, it wasn't a tenant occupied structure, it was
Well,
owner
no,
occupied.
I was,
I would think you
I
have
thought I
a
was
right
required
to do
to have
that in
a
your own
permit,
yard during repairs and construction, that type of thing, I would think.
I would suggest the staff also understood it was gonna be a temporary use, that you would move back into your home.
yeah, but it may, I still would end up getting a permit.
Any further questions? Okay, you said the applicant is here?
Yes.
Okay, is anyone wish to ask questions of the applicant?
Does the applicant want to speak?
I have owned this property since 89,
Excuse
91.
me, can you give me your name and address, please?
It's Jackie Whalen, 7056 Taylor Creek Road. I've been a resident of Nelson County since 1978. I've owned this property since 1989. 89. Not to waste my time, your time, I will not be renting this out anymore as a campsite travel trailer. The woman who created this monster situation, my mistake was I did not do a criminal background check on this person, and she has created an absolute nightmare. I will use this farm for my breeding operation and horses and I am not getting into this business ever, ever again, trust me. End the conversation.
Which is no longer there, why are you requesting a permit then?
She's taken this to you guys time after time after time.
She's what?
She has brought this up in front of you.
Okay, but she's not there anymore.
Well, she's saying she's always coming back. It's a lawsuit. It's a lawsuit. She keeps saying that she's entitled to this property. The woman is a nightmare. I'm not doing this anymore. I love
Okay.
my land.
So
I've
then
had it
we don't
for,
need to do this.
I'm sorry?
We don't need to do this, then she can't come back,
Thank you.
okay?
So,
Thank you.
so you're withdrawing your application?
No.
for-
No, she can't. But she is telling us that she would, you know,
I'm not
She
doing
doesn't
a
get-
campsite.
care.
I'm not doing a campsite. I'm not gonna have people stay for 6 months. I'm finished.
So if
Yeah, I
we
can
cut
make a
it
motion
down, then
really
that
quick.
solves some
Yeah.
of your problems.
I think
sorry?
we're ready to
Ernie.
make a motion.
so we can help you.
If we turn it down, that helps your situation.
I guess, I don't know, but I'm just telling you,
Well, you
I-
won't be able to get this woman back.
I won't be able to get this woman back.
You won't be able to get a travel, a trailer there.
You won't be able to have a tenant at all.
Mr. Chairman, can I make this motion?
If you withdraw, then you're done.
Well, if I may, if somehow the tenant would prevail and come back, then county zoning enforcement would be against the property owner, not the tenant necessarily.
I
It
think,
would be up to the property owner to evict the tenant.
I think those legal situations can sort themselves out, and then we find out
Right.
whatever, which I don't think we will. So
So where are we?
we're gonna make a motion.
I move that we turn the application down.
A second.
So does this mean she can come back and sue him?
No,
I mean, I don't know. We can't give you legal advice on that one, but
you can no longer have a
tenant.
tenant there like that.
So where does this put me with her? She can't come back.
She can't come back because you don't have the permission to do it there.
Nobody's allowed to live there.
She has been living there up until November. And
Okay,
she's the one who created this nightmare.
I
we
mean,
know of that, we're aware of that now. You don't have
we
a
don't give legal advice.
permit to have one there, so we gonna come after the property owner, but I mean, you have some grounds then to move her out of there because you can't do it.
I mean, I evicted her back in June.
Okay.
All right. We're helping you.
I'm sorry?
We're helping you.
Thank you.
Okay,
We're trying to.
Please, I need help.
Okay. Ms. Whalen, thank you. Any other questions for her? Okay, thank you. Okay, we do have a motion and we do have a second to deny special use permit 2020-04. Any more discussion?
Yes. Second.
We have a second.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes,
Mr. Barton?
yes is to
Yes.
deny.
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Parr?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
yes,
Mr. Reed?
Yes. Okay, next item, report on CARES Act funding. Ms. McGinn?
Right, good afternoon. I'm just gonna step through the report that was in your packet. First item is our expenditure deadline was extended through December 31st, 2021. As you know, the original deadline was December 30th of 2020. This extension applies to the county's original coronavirus relief fund allocations of $2.6 million, two broadband connect grants of $285,000, and the municipal utility assistance grant funds of $77,949.80 that will be passed through to the Nelson County Service Authority. Our funding status as of December 31st, 2020 is, we have a balance of unobligated CARES Act funds of $16,143. And this balance assumes full expenditure of all of the items that have been previously approved through the December board meeting. Any variations in costs from the original or revised plans have been accounted for in calculating the contingency balance.
We also anticipate that there will be some county charges to these funds with our January 12th accounts payable run, and some fluctuations in estimated versus actual costs that will be applied. We do have 2 funding requests for consideration today. First one being from the Gladstone Volunteer Fire and Rescue Services. They're asking for 2 Curaflex Quick Connect carriers, which are X-ray translucent backboard sort of things that break apart for easier use with hip and pelvic injuries, and they are also easier to sanitize. So this total request is for $1,799.98. It meets the CARES Act funding criteria of public health due to the fact that it's easier. The easier sanitation provides mitigation of COVID exposure for patients and EMS providers. We do have a little asterisk there that notes that an alternate source of funding for this type of equipment is For Life funds. And those funds are annually distributed to the EMS Council for qualifying items such as EMS equipment and supplies. There's a second request from Piney River Volunteer Fire Department for HVAC replacement, including a 36,000 BTU mini split unit. It includes 1 outdoor and 3 indoor units and all electrical and wiring. The request is for $5,850. This meets the CARES Act criteria of medical expenses, as the Piney River Volunteer Fire Department facility could be used as a COVID shelter treatment center during the current pandemic. And the final component of the report has to do with the CARES Act Families First Coronavirus Relief Act, or FFCRA. This particular provision was not included in the new federal relief bill, which means that employees need to be out from work for COVID-19 related reasons, such as experiencing symptoms and seeking a medical diagnosis, being advised by healthcare providers to self-quarantine, or caring for their child whose school or place of care is closed, will have to use their personal leave for these purposes. Or in the case of part-time employees who don't have personal leave, wages will be lost. These provisions were enacted to provide emergency paid sick leave and expanded family medical leave for specific reasons related to COVID-19 from April 1st, 2020 through December 30th, 2020. So those provisions have expired. And given the status of the current coronavirus pandemic, staff would like to propose that the Board of Supervisors authorize a local continuation of these benefits that basically mimics the federal program in whole or in part through June 30th, 2021. And I've attached a summary of those FFCRA benefits. Some benefits to doing this, employees would be more inclined to stay home or leave work when sick, limiting potential exposure to others. Limiting exposure to others in the workplace helps minimize related insurance claims, which affects claims experience and ultimately premium costs. Employees would be more inclined to quarantine when advised to do so. Transmission of COVID-19 in the workplace would be less likely if employees were more inclined to follow CDC and VDH exposure and quarantine guidelines. There's no immediate cost to the county. Full-time employees would simply not be charged leave for qualifying reasons under the expired FFCRA guidelines. Employees that can telework while out on COVID-19 leave would continue to do so, health permitting. Employees experiencing childcare provision issues due to COVID-19 would be able to continue alternate work schedules to allow for teleworking while needing to provide childcare, promoting employee retention. Some cons to doing this that we've identified, as always, employee abuse is possible. However, the same level of documentation would be required as under the expired FFCRA guideline. The immediate cost to the county if part-time benefits were extended would be either 100% or 2/3 pay for part-time employees, 2-week equivalent depending on their qualifying reason for being on leave. Let's see. There's a potential future cost or liability to the county for payout of vacation leave balances for terminating employees whose vacation balance was not reduced due to this local extension. Most employees would use their sick leave for this. However, once an employee's sick leave is exhausted, they would go to their vacation, and that could be used. So that's all of my report right now. So I'd be happy to take any questions, and then
Yeah.
if you'd like to consider
When we look at this, how much was over this past year of FFCRA, whatever, was utilized by the county? I mean, how much money did we end up spending?
I'm gonna say probably about, over the whole course of the time, about
Yeah, since like March.
23 to 25,000.
Okay.
We applied in December, we got hit hard. We probably charged about 17,000, I think it was,
Sure.
in December. Here's that.
Further account with that, how, now, does that include the school systems employees as well?
No, it does not.
So they have to do their own thing?
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Social services, is that a similar situation?
Yes, that would be a similar situation.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I think this is,
I didn't consider this, well, I did, but I didn't put it in the report. Constitutional officers, they have their own leave policies unless they fall under the county's leave, so they could potentially decide not to participate, I suppose.
So this is something that you thought of that could benefit people who work for the county? Or was?
Yes, and I believe there are other localities out there considering this as well.
Yeah.
It was an internal discussion, if I may. I certainly agree with the recommendation. As Katie said, essentially, if someone's out and it's legitimately documented, the budget is going to cover that expense anyway. And typically, even when I was out, I still worked from home when I could. So we haven't had any instances as far as we're aware of any cheating. It's almost impossible if you're impacted by the virus. So it's just an extension because we're not beyond this virus situation yet. And people have the potential still to contract this virus and be away from work for up to 14 days or longer.
And the thought is if people are worried about, their leave balances, use of their leave, they're gonna come to work sick, they're not gonna leave when they're sick.
I think the thinking is really good.
how do we allocate like $80,000, $50,000, or do we just kind of find out what it is as we go? I'm just not sure how appropriations work.
Nothing's really required other than the board's approval. We would just continue to administer the program, without any federal funding.
Sure, so it would just come out of the general fund.
Right. The only actual pay that would happen would be for part-time employees, potentially.
Sure.
Full-time employees that have leave, they
Oh, I see what
simply
you're
just
saying.
wouldn't
They
be charged leave.
Got it,
But
got
we
it.
just
This wouldn't
document
be
their
any
time
extra.
off.
I see, got it, I understand now. I have no issues with this program.
I'm going to report under when I get up to present my report to the board. We're following up on getting the whole county organization registered and established for the vaccines.
Okay, we have, am I right, we have 3 different action items here. One is the request from Gladstone Volunteer Fire and Rescue for $1799.98.
Right.
Right? One from Piney River Fire Department for the mini split for $58.50.
Correct.
And then an extension of the local continuation of benefits.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. If I may, a fourth thing, which is somewhat included in, if the board would endorse the continuation of the CARES program administered locally, is the question of the board being comfortable with resumption of allowing the county departments to telework on a rotational basis. We did that for the first several months after the virus started to impact us, and we stopped it. But recently, as Kenny noted in the financial numbers, in December, we were hit pretty hard, and There were times where, like in my office, there was no one there. We had to have other people cover it. Dispatches have been impacted, so it would be helpful until we can get through this vaccine, if the board is comfortable with allowing a rotational basis in each department for, one employee to work at home for so many days during the week, then come back to work, and another employee to telework. I don't think we lost any, and we didn't miss a beat. Every time I communicated with someone who was teleworking, their response was almost instantaneous. So I never had the impression that someone was home just hanging around. So hopefully the board will consider that too.
What do you mean on a rotational basis? That means whether I'm sick or not, I get.
No. The healthy employees would just switch. One employee, I'll use information services. So Susan and Roy would submit a schedule for her department for a month, and each week, one employee would say work at home 2 days a week, the other 2 would be in the office, and then the other 3 days, another employee would work from home, and the person who'd been off would be back. We always want to have someone here, but we would allow people to telework just as a deterrent to the virus for now.
You're reducing the number of staff that'll be interacting.
Steve, you're not letting anybody in the offices, so they have no contact. Any contact they have is gonna be outside of the work scope.
Well, we're still dealing with the public. It's just.
And you also have exposure within your employees. I agree 100%, Steve, with what you're saying. In fact, I would take it a step further and allow the supervisor of each department to make a decision on whether they want to do a weekly rotation, or for me, for my employees, I've got employees that have not stepped foot in an office since March 13th. And they're doing their job well at home, telecommuting. So we have a team set up where if someone on this team gets sick, then the other team can walk right in and backfill for them. So just because the public's not coming in, your employees are in the public going to food line and possibly getting exposed and then bringing that into the workforce. I like having that option of people not working in. If we have employees that their daily performance is not mandatory that they be sitting at a desk in this building, then I think we owe it to all of the coworkers to give them that opportunity to telecommute.
I mean, the thing it would eliminate is a situation where, in case of the county administrator's office, where that whole office had to quarantine at the same time. Whereas if they were rotating, then certain people would be out, or others would be coming back in if they had to be out. We're so small that it really does kind of impact us.
And we are
if that were to
moving,
happen.
Based on the information we've received today, this morning, maybe last night, is we are definitely moving the county organization closer to being able to schedule employees to be vaccinated. That's definitely in the works.
It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Just.
So, if I may, since we've got 4 different things before us, maybe we'll divide them in half and split the difference. The first 2 have to do with the request from Gladstone and Plain River.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we.
Hold on just a second. Has those 2 things been brought before the Emergency Services Council?
That I do not know. I think they're submitted
Everything like that
directly.
goes to the council first. None of these departments should be directly asking stuff from the county. They take it to the emergency services, but it's set up.
They may have had some outside communication, but I don't know that it's actually gone before the council.
There's nothing here that says it's been approved by them.
You'd rather defer it until the council has approved?
Well, they need to approve it. I mean, what was the last one we approved for something that,
The apparatus that washes the.
that went through the council.
Right, the FOB or fire department, maybe?
For what?
They were getting some work on their refrigeration equipment and then replacing their heat pump system and blower motor on their train package unit, whatever that means.
I mean, it's just like they send me these requests. I mean, it needs to go through the council. Rockfish right now has got probably the oldest air conditioning system in any of the buildings we got in any of the emergency services that needs to be replaced, but they shouldn't come to us. They should go through the council.
Yeah, we certainly don't disagree. I don't think we really thought about it and bringing this forward to the board.
And David, are they putting in air conditioning at the Pine River Firehouse?
This would be a split unit. It's a 6,000 square foot facility that has one window unit and a back office, and that's it. The furnaces are brand new. The furnaces in the main part and in the kitchen area were just redone. The fire department just paid to have both of those redone in early 2020, end of 19, something like that, a year ago. This would be for the air conditioning in the mini splits in the other sections, and they have it split into zones so that that main part of the facility could be used for, it could be used either for training, it could be used for a shelter treatment center in warm weather, because it's pretty hot in the main part.
Well, knowing the way that building is built, how would you ever cool it?
With 3 mini split units, 36,000 BTU mini splits.
And we certainly have a lot more time now to
Right.
spend these funds.
Yes, we're under no,
Not under the gun anymore.
yeah, so,
But it should be that all these departments should have equal access to be able to ask for some of these things.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like, I don't know how some of them are getting the word or whatever, but, they ask for things that are not going through the council.
so, we certainly can defer this until, we get a recommendation directly from council.
Well, that's Mr. Paul. Is it a hardship on you for any reason?
And we do have more time.
Okay, so maybe we can, reach out to the council and make sure they understand, and then we can perhaps hear from them for next week.
But I believe if we were doing it direct to them, that's why it goes through the bid process, isn't it?
You're just granting them the funding. I mean, the board, as a condition of the funding, could require them to get bids. but
No, I'm
competitive
just
pricing.
I'm just saying that.
I think technically any sub-recipient of these funds is supposed to follow the county's procurement guidelines, is my understanding.
That's not something we can monitor.
Right.
Okay, so is it appropriate for staff to reach out to the council and let them know that we'd like to hear from them directly about these?
Well, these two.
I think it's up to the fire departments to present it to the council, and then the council bring it to us. I don't think it's appropriate for us to go asking the council for it.
Okay,
Well, the word needs to be sent to these two departments.
Yeah, but not
You
the
need-
council.
Yeah,
But to
right.
Gladstone and Piney River.
You're right.
That's what
Since
we,
they reached out to me, I can do that.
yeah, that's what we would do, is just reach back out to each department and
Just like go through
tell
the
them they
council.
need to go through the council.
okay. Well, then,
And I think, I can speak for one of the two requests. It was, at the time the request was made, it's because time was running out.
Right.
It was a use it or lose it by the end of December. And that's why I made this request for Piney River, because we were gonna lose the money. And, so now that we have more time, we can definitely go through the council.
That's very kind of you.
thank you, Mr. Park.
Yeah.
Okay. We still have the other two, which is, the continuation of, benefits and, remind me what.
I think allowing the,
Pull up the rotating
working
tele.
schedule.
Yeah, so we don't need to have a voice vote on that, we can just, you know,
Consensus is fine.
Consensus.
Yeah, that's fine.
any objection to those?
Mine is no, I think you ought to vote on it.
Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Would you like them,
motion.
would you like them separate or together?
I think I'm together. Be fine with me.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, then we're looking for a voice vote on, we're looking
You
for
don't have a motion.
He's
Voting
gonna
for a
make a
motion. Thank you.
I move that the county extend the CARES Act Families First Relief Act funding and allowing county staff to telecommute as needed based on management approval, supervisor approval.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
No,
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
And just as a side note, I would hope, I think this is a smart thing for us to do for the safety of a potentially positive employee and their coworkers. I would encourage all departments in the county to seriously consider extending their benefits as well. I think this would be prudent for us to extend countywide.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett.
If I may, if we communicate back to the two departments and then a letter comes forward from the council, does the board want us to proceed or just bring it back to you for formal approval?
please come back here.
I agree.
So
I do.
you're wanting to extend this to all the constitutional officers and all that stuff? Social services?
I'm not saying I wanted to extend it. I'm saying I encourage all departments to consider their own setup.
Whatever works for them.
Yes, but I would hope that they would be able to do it as
First
well.
thing they're gonna do is come back and,
Well, you know, sometimes it,
okay.
put it this way, one of the largest employers in the county, I've already heard a lot of people concerned about losing this benefit that stopped at the end of December and how it's going to impact decision-making on an individual basis moving forward. And I think that could lead to a lot of problems. I've lived it. I had COVID last month, in case anybody doesn't know here. I've lived this. My wife and I both were sick. And, you know, I would hate to think that my employer did not have the opportunity to work, which I'm blessed. I know I'm very fortunate in my occupation. And I was able to stay home, even though I tested negative. I knew better than to go to work, and I stayed home. I didn't get positive. We didn't get tested positive for almost 10 days. It was almost 10 days. And we both knew to stay home. And I would hate to think that I have to worry about, am I losing PTO because I'm staying home being smart about this? That should not enter into my decision-making. I think without something like this, we're forcing people to have that be the basis of their decision.
We have several employees who, without this extension, would have a conflict with not having daycare providers if the schools don't go back to school. And we've already heard, well, we may, that one or more of those employees may have to make a tough decision about do they continue working for the county or not. You know, that's just how it can be.
Well, Steve, everybody in the general public has that same problem.
Well, this is the county's organization.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carr. Next is the school board capital improvement plan fund appropriation request.
If I may, maybe Ms. Urban or Dr. Eagle would present that.
Okay, would either of you like to present that for us?
I come before you today to talk about funds that were returned to the county as of June 30th, according to the draft county audit that we received.
Is the mic on?
I didn't talk into it, I'm sorry. I'm mic shy. We come before you to seek an additional appropriation to the school board as a result of monies that were returned to the county as indicated in the draft audit report that we received. And actually, this would be a first to establish a program where funds that were not expended by the school board in a fiscal year would be reappropriated to the board to use in our capital improvement plan. So we wouldn't be coming to you for funding to get some needed projects done. They would be paid for with savings that the school division received in a prior fiscal year. Each year we submit to you a list of projects that the board has identified as needing to be done. And there's never money, well, rarely money, to be able to tackle them. I think we've got several $1 million worth of projects identified. And some of them have some safety components or safety concerns that we feel would be met if these funds were appropriated to the board. In particular, we're proud to say that we applied for a school security equipment grant, and we were awarded the maximum amount allowed of $250,000, and that has a required 25% local match that we would have to come up with funds to do. In addition, there are a number of capital projects on the school board CIP. In particular, the one that we have just worked with Architectural Partners is to rehabilitate the greenhouse. The greenhouse was built, assuming probably in the 1970s, so at least 50 years ago. The putty and the stuff that holds the glass together on top of the roof is deteriorating, and the architect has some serious concerns about the possibility that that glass could fall and break and injure someone. So the architect has looked at the property, looked at the project, has talked to greenhouse consultants, and actually the folks who did the Sweetbriar project came in and took a look and has given a really good price of I believe it's in the neighborhood of $250,000 thereabout to refurbish that to modern standards. It's not quite glass, it's a composite type material that would be on the outside. It would be much safer for our students. So there are a number of projects that have been listed. Many of them you've seen year after year after year, and this isn't going to tackle them all by any means, but at least we would have a procedure in place going forward that would encourage savings by the school system and the completion of projects that have been identified by the board and submitted to the board of supervisors that we could accomplish little bit by little bit.
Shannon, that was set up years ago. Every money that you've ever turned back has been put into a capital fund. We're supposed to put into the capital fund.
I don't believe that's been the case, sir, but
Well, I know it's supposed to be, and that's what was.
I know the board has been generous to do some projects that, on a project by project basis, but I don't think that there was a procedure in place that it automatically occurred.
I don't think it occurred automatically, but if the school board requested an appropriation of the year-ending balance, then the board's been amenable to
No, it
that.
wasn't an automatic thing, but it was to capitalize on capital improvements.
Right, and that would be the desire here, would be to have the savings to address those things that are either required in the security grant or on our capital improvement plan.
Well, that's, what I don't understand is your priorities, that we don't have a list of priorities. That we try to go from A, B, C, all this like this. Now, this greenhouse has never been a top priority, but now it's the top priority you have.
What has never been a priority?
This greenhouse.
It's been on our list for a few years. The issue now is the safety aspect in terms of whether those glass panels will actually fall. I don't know that it had gotten to the point where the panels are actually dangerous or not. So, and again, the school board has not formally said that is our number one priority. That is just from my reading of the school board. They have always looked at safety as their number one concern. And because it has been identified by a professional as being a safety concern, I would anticipate that would be something that they look at.
Well, especially if we have, Mr. Carter.
If I may, the architect's report, if I read it correctly, suggested, it seemed like their recommendation was more to tear it down to the foundation and rebuild it instead of repairing it. So
They would keep the brick sides and basically put this new model of building structure on top of what the base is now.
So if the board approved the funding and it went through the greenhouse, the contractor, whoever, would tear it down to the foundation and then reconstruct it as similarly as what the stronger recommendation was from Architectural Partners.
Right.
I think the foundation is the part you would keep.
No, that's what I'm
Yeah,
suggesting.
Is greenhouse not usable now?
It would be usable. The control panels don't work. They have an LED panel where they set the misters and temperature and all that. And it's a LED panel, and the LED panels burn out, so you can't see it. So the control system needs work. And also the glass structure itself needs to be replaced.
But it's being used.
Yes, if school were in session, we would have kids there.
I know one, and I can understand this capital improvement project, but I do have a just general question, because I know we allocated money for capital improvement. Whatever happened with the welding facility that we had spoken about, and I believe we dedicated monies, not necessarily directly for that, but with intentions.
That was one of the studies as well that the architects did, and he looked at 4 different options of that. One was building a new facility. One was changing the old maintenance facility into a welding facility. One was redoing the ag shop and segregating a park to make it a welding facility. The recommendation that the architect had after review would be to look at the existing facility and make some modifications there and have it be shared by the two. The school board has not determined which option to choose, but it is still on the radar screen. We have some issues in terms of staffing that we're going to be looking at there. So, there are a number of factors to consider as the school board makes that decision.
Right. So when I'm just looking at the 441 number, so about 56K is going to be, or 50-some $1,000 is going to be used for the security grant. That's the 25% match, right? Yeah. And then I'm not sure if
Right,
I
and
missed
then the
it.
school board will have to vote to see how.
Yeah, 62.
Right, how they would like to spend those monies. I just listed the greenhouse as a possibility just because it was safety, but
I just think, and this is just emphasis and something that's always been in the back of my mind, and I understand we can't tell you, but that welding facility could potentially mean a lot to a lot of people.
we agree.
And so I would hope that some of this money could be in that sphere.
And to comment on what you said a minute ago, I think we agreed to support a facility, but funds were not allocated. We just, as a board, agreed that that's something we would support if it was something they put as a top priority. That's how that was done, which, not that it's any of my business, but I certainly don't like taking away square footage from a successful program like we have in ag and giving it to another program that is needed, but I wish we could find a way to do one without taking away from the other.
Just get building trades, build y'all a building.
There you go.
We'll pay for the 2x4s and nails.
There you go. In terms of the school board's capital fund, it would be helpful if the funds would roll over from year to year or be reappropriated so that if over a number of years, the school board could save money for a particular project. For example, we know that the roof at the high schools needs to be replaced. That was put on, I guess, when right before the middle school was built, so about 2021, 22, 2001, 2002, so it's about 20 years old. And so we think that that will be in the neighborhood of $1.2 million. That's a lot of money in any one year to put out for a roof, but if we could save for it, if that money could roll over from year to year, we could put it in it anyway.
So we're talking about replacing the roof again already at the high school?
Yeah, it was done prior to the middle school. So that membrane roof that's there,
Yeah.
it's reached its end of the 20 years, end of the warranty period anyway.
Comes around fast.
And I know this is
I've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
I know this is a separate additional subject versus, it's compared to what we're talking about here, but I agree that it would be nice if we could get a proactive approach to capital improvement for the school system, rather than reactive and whatever we got here, well, let's throw this here. It would be nice to have a schedule, so that some of those things that have been on the list for 20 years can start coming off.
If I may,
We'll sit down at a table and go over all the information we have about the status of our facilities, when things were bought, what the useful life is expected to be, and, they need to be replaced.
all right, if I may, that would be a wonderful item for us to take up in a joint meeting. And so, and I think it's a really reasonable and potentially great solution. But for the time being, we're talking about the 441, 546. Is that the amount that was returned?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you're asking for that money to be reallocated?
Appropriated in a school capital improvement fund.
Mr. Chairman, are you ready for a motion?
I am.
I move that we allocate the supplemental appropriation of $441,546 to the school's capital improvement fund.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shannon, how long have y'all known what the amount was gonna be? The budget closed out in June.
Yes, sir. We calculate our budget so many different ways. We do it on a cash basis, which is, I think, how probably the county operates too. But then we have to wait for our bills to come in July and August, and then we have to use an accrual base and put those expenses back in the previous fiscal year, and then take out the things that were paid the previous July and August and charge them to that prior year. So it takes a while to get the accrual basis done, which is what the audit report is done on. So if you were gonna ask me on cash basis, I could tell you on June 30th. If you're gonna ask me on accrual basis, I have to wait until the accruals are done. And it's confusing for folks that don't work in the accounting office, because the numbers are different. Cash basis is different than accrual basis.
Oh, yeah.
And y'all have already done the bonus program?
Yes, sir, we did that in December.
Where'd that come from?
We did $1,000 for, did you say where did it come from? It came from unexpended funds. We have not used hardly any substitutes, as Mr. Carr mentioned earlier. Our folks that have not been working in the building, most of them have worked from home. So we used our substitute budgets and our part-time employee budgets. We haven't had part-time bus drivers, we haven't had field trips, we haven't done a lot of things that we normally would have done. And so those were the sources of revenue that we used to pay the bonuses.
Would that be actually considered, leftover funds or? That would go in a capital improvement or?
I guess had they not been spent for bonuses at year end, they possibly could have been, yes, sir.
There's savings year to date. That's the way to describe it, right?
Correct, in the current year, within the current year. We were looking at where we were tracking from, when school started at the beginning of August through December to see whether we had saved enough money to do that.
Well, I mean, that's one of the things that, of course, we're gonna discuss it today, but we try to do things like that and keep them in, when we're doing pretty much the same thing. What I am told is that y'all were doing for y'all's employees, and, you know, we didn't know any, I mean, I just think the communication between the two boards still needs to be improved.
We knew at the December board meeting here that the school system was doing bonus. Well, at least we knew it was being discussed. I knew it was. I don't know.
I don't have a spouse that teaches in school. I don't think it was brought up here.
I didn't learn it from my spouse.
I think
I know other
Dr.
people in
Eagle
the
came
school
and
system.
said, Dr. Eagle said they came up and they were gonna wait and kind of see what we were gonna do today.
No, I told you all in December, we had a conversation, I was standing right
Yeah.
up there, and I stated that.
Yeah,
that's what
she said
the
December.
board hadn't voted on it yet.
What the hell is it?
You talk to the board or you talk to?
You asked me.
Yeah, she came here in December, I remember.
Yeah.
Ms. Irvin, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bonuses.
next on the agenda is the consideration of employee compensation.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Dr. Eagle, is it any sense of when the kids are going back to school or is that still riding?
Is there any sense right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have, the board voted in December to have a target date of, February 1st. So they will look at the metrics on, this Thursday and decide on that. They could delay that again. But right now, we're, looking at pre-K through 3 coming on board on, February 1st.
And that seems to be the most crucial.
Right.
Every
Yes.
way you
We
look
want
at
the
it.
little guys, that's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Gary?
Okay, as discussed last meeting, we presented to you two bonus scenarios. The first was $500 for full-time employees and $250 for part-time employees. And that would exclude the sheriff's department deputies that received the $500 bonus in December. And that would be a one-time cost of $44,406. The second scenario was $1,000 for full-time employees and $500 for part-time employees. And that does include another $500 bonus for sheriff's deputies that received the first $500 bonus in December. And that would be a one-time cost of $100,115. Supervisors took no action at that time and asked staff to bring back the cost of a 1% raise for all employees as of January 1, 2021, which is approximately half of the fiscal year. We did receive from the Department of Social Services a request or some numbers showing that if they proposed a $1,000 bonus for full-time and $500 for part-time, their total cost would be $18,300.50. And the local match of that is 15.5% at $2,836 or $2,836.58. County currently has 91 full-time employees and 29 part-time employees. If this were approved effective January 1, the bonus or raise would apply to those employees employed as of December 31st, 2020. So the raise scenario, a 1% raise, including benefits for all current full and part-time employees, effective January 1, 2021, would cost approximately $26,957. So that equates to an annual increase of $53,913 for FY '22 going forward. We calculated the part-time cost based upon basically half-time at 1,080 hours annually. Also in this scenario, the Department of Social Services total cost of this option for the rest of FY '21, which for them would be January through May, is $2,763.02, with the local match of 15.5%, being $428.27. This equates to an annual increase of $6,631.25 in FY '22, with the local match being $1,027.84. Funding for either of these options is proposed to come from the general fund recurring contingency balance of $361,495.74. And I believe Social Services has 16 full-time employees and 2 part-time.
So, question. So if we did $1,000 bonus for full-time, 500 for part-time, that cost is $1,115 for the county. And when I look at the social services number, is that the bottom one, where total cost is 18,300? Is that an assumption of $1,000?
Yes.
Okay, so if we were to do $1,000 for full-time employees for the county and make sure social services is getting the same thing, the cost of the county is going to be about $1,002 or
Right.
$1,003.
103,000.
103. Okay. My philosophy on 1% has changed. You know, I think it's a little bit more of a hassle than I had assumed it to be. So it is my suggestion to the board that we do the $1,000 full-time employee bonus, $500 for part-time, and make sure that we're including social services in that algorithm, which would be that $100,000, 115, plus that 2,800 match for social services.
Is that a motion?
Normally, we would be the lead on this, but now we're bringing up the tail.
We're bringing up the tail. Yeah,
Well, because we waited.
we did wait.
We should have made this decision in December, and it would have been a holiday bonus, but I'm glad you finally see the light, Mr. Butler. And I agree with you.
Well, we got social services on it this
Yeah,
round. See?
I mean, we can talk about the raise later, but the bonus we can do, and we can help people right away.
Yeah.
These people, particularly social services, it's, even though the state pays most of their income, they provide services for the people of Nelson County. And those, I feel good that we should provide those services. And those particular people have had a more serious time with this COVID thing. I mean, it's more troublesome for them. So we should use every opportunity we have to help those people who help them. And we pay our employees so little in social services that we should do that too anyway. So, you know, I don't think it's a no-brainer. I think it's a no-brainer. I think we need to help the
I think
people
we're
of this
trying to make a
county.
motion, Skip.
Skip's
Where
got
are
the
the
floor.
people underpaid at?
In social services.
Have you ever-
In school teaching and we live in a society,
But
I
dog,
mean,
that's
that
it.
the
Sometimes
people who do the work are underpaid.
you've got
That's
to sometimes
reality.
think
Excuse me.
about the damn people that pay the taxes to give those people all them raises.
Mr. Barton
Do
has the
we have
floor.
a motion?
Mr. Barton has the floor. Are you finished?
Yeah,
Okay. Mr. Harvey?
people
No,
pay
I'm-
taxes because they can afford to pay taxes.
Bullshit.
Come on,
And
guys.
people who are poor in our society pay a higher percentage of their income in taxes than the wealthy pay. Now, in a particular local area, I'm not gonna argue, particularly, excuse me, I have a toothache. We need to help people in our community who help people who are in the greatest need.
One thing that I particularly like about a bonus is that it doesn't matter if you have a high income or a low income.
Right.
If you're full-time, you get a bonus, and it's more helpful to the people that are not making the higher level salaries. It helps them out a lot more.
Aren't they gonna pay taxes out of that money too?
Oh, I
So the
understand.
ones in the higher echelon gonna get a whole lot less than, which I don't have no problem with that. It,
You don't have a problem with what?
with doing it that way, because the people that have $100,000 salary is gonna pay a lot more taxes on that $1,000 than if somebody's making 25,000. So the lower end will actually get more of that.
So,
Yeah.
so I think we're in agreement.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion?
I have a motion, Mr. Chairman. I move that we allocate the $1,000 full-time employees and $500 for part-time employees, which also includes a new $500 bonus to sheriff deputies, at a one-time cost of $100,000 and $115,000, to also include the social services proposal of making sure that they get a $1,000 bonus to whatever plan they have, which is matching ours, with our local match of $2,800, which puts us at around $103,000 total. I move that we approve that.
That's second.
Trace, did you get that? Okay.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Harvey?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I
Thank
know our
you.
employees will greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We appreciate that.
And now they haven't blown it on Christmas, so now they're gonna still have it.
Not to pay the bills.
You guys spend the money local. I'm asking.
Okay. Steve, you must have a report for us.
David, did I give you a copy? You have no report?
There it is, yes. Looking in the wrong spot for it, thank you.
Thank you. The COVID-19 virus, as I mentioned in earlier discussion, last week I completed a survey, or the staff completed a survey with the health department to establish the county, first step towards the county's organization receiving vaccines for the virus. Today, we looked at the next steps from the health department and the CDC on actually scheduling county employees to receive, including the board, the whole organization, to receive the vaccine. So Amanda has been designated as the point of contact. She's already filled out that response. Next steps are to gather all the information required to provide to the health department on employees, and then ultimately the employee is going to be responsible for going in and scheduling their own vaccine and their own appointments, but all this is now in the works. I can't say definitively yet when the vaccines will be available, but we're definitely moving towards that. We're in group 1B in the administration of the virus. The school division, as I understand it, has been contacted similarly, and they'll, I'm sure, have to follow the same steps as we do. So,
Mr. Carter, is it, do the individual employees have to make filing, or do you do that on their behalf?
we'll provide whatever information is necessary, and we just got this morning, I skimmed through it, is necessary to get us into the ability for each individual employee to schedule themselves to receive the vaccine. And then ultimately the employee is going to have to schedule their appointment. I mean, we'll assist them, of course, if they need that assistance, but as I understand it from today, that's how it's going to work.
Why couldn't they just come up here to the courthouse and do it?
The health department, as I understand it, is going to work out of central locations. I think it's the Nelson Center, but they haven't told us that specifically yet.
I had put a memo about the fire department too.
Mm-hmm. Well, when they asked us, the health department for a recommendation, I submitted the Nelson Center because of the spatial requirements, the restroom requirements, the parking, et cetera. So it seemed to be a good location.
They decided, they start Thursday.
So as I said, we've
Just
included
makes more
board.
sense if you did it somewhere like this, that everybody that gone 10 minutes from work and set up, an hour.
No, I understand, but the health department's request was for a space of about 3,500 square feet, adequate restrooms, large parking area. It seemed like to me that that central area of the Nelson Center, the old gymnasium, cafeteria, gymnasium combination was a good spot, and there's a lot of parking over there, so. But that's the approach the health department's taking, is trying to have central locations instead of, they have to go here, there, and everywhere. At least that's how I've understood it today. So I think long and short of it is, we're now trying to get in the queue to get our employees able to schedule to receive the vaccines.
Emergency services is tomorrow.
And as far as what I said initially in my report about the virus, well, let me correct, about 5 lines down, it's not grout, that's group is what it's supposed to say. We don't have any employees, that's a correction. We had one employee out who was quarantined because of exposure to the virus, but that employee is returned to work as of Monday, so that's a correction. And we'll keep the board informed of this because, of course, we've included y'all, the board, to get in the queue for these vaccines. The Tide River water system, we've completed everything and converting that system, except for the removal of the tank and a couple of punch list items the health department's office from Lexington identified. So the tank is scheduled to come down January 19th, or at least preliminary work to bring the tank down is scheduled for January 19th. And once that's done, and a couple punch list items, which are minor, putting a screen over some intake area. Hopefully by the next board meeting, everything there will be all completed, if probably much sooner. The tunnel, whether it's tunnel, I guess we were, at least I was, surprised at how many people had gone to visit it already. I mean, we're probably approaching 20,000 people so far. It's been almost shocking to us. So what we're doing is, you may recall, maybe not, as part of the phase 3 project, probably 4 years ago now, we applied to the Department of Conservation and Recreation for grant funding to support phase 3. We did receive that money. We still have, I think, in the neighborhood of $120,000 of that money remaining. So unless the board is concerned about this, we're working with a retired engineer in Alan Hale to expand the parking lot, the eastern parking lot. And then we may go over and look at expanding the western parking lot using that funding. We're also, because people have been parking anywhere and everywhere, we have bids and are ready to proceed with installing a fence on the west side of Depot Lane as a deterrent from people. It just becomes dangerous because people just park anywhere and have total disregard for anything. It's almost chaotic at times. So we're trying to address that. And then the report on ABC licensed entities in the county, the breweries, the wineries, et cetera. Maureen, Kelly, and Dylan have compiled sort of a summary document, and we're waiting on a point of contact with the state to help coordinate various state agencies to come and meet with the board in a work session format. So as soon as we can get some dates for their availability, we'll communicate with Mr. Reed and hopefully schedule a special meeting for a work session. And I know that a board planning meeting and discussions earlier with particularly maybe all of you. We still think you have time if you want to have have planning sessions, strategic planning sessions, establishing board priorities.
I think particularly in this time of, lockdown and all the things that we get together and exchange our way of thinking and what we think, what our priorities are. I mean, we don't have to agree, but I think we need to get together, don't you? I mean, really. And what's important to each of us and.
In the past sessions, I think all of them, we've used a facilitator, and not always the same person. The last couple, we used Chip Boyles and David Blunt from the planning district in Charlottesville. I reached out to Chip and David earlier, and, David is the legislative liaison, so he'll be probably tied up pretty soon with the General Assembly session. Chip said he would be available and noted that January 26th to 29th, February 2nd or 12th are dates that would work for him. So if the board's amenable to this, we'll work with Mr. Reed and hopefully schedule this and have it at one of those 4 dates. And I think Mr. Harvey, Mr. Rutherford, Mr. Reed have been through this before, as I recall, and I think you'll find it to be a pretty interesting process on how the board comes to consensus on establishing priorities for the county.
Is this a good time to talk a little more about this item?
Sure.
Since we're on it. I had planned during the report time to propose that we have a work session before the end of the month. Not a planning session per se, but one that focused primarily on capital planning. We've got some real important things before us right now, just in that area, that might serve us well if we could share our views on that, especially prior to a potential meeting with the school board. So I'll be taking that up later, but if
I may, I'll just note, if I recall correctly, these strategic planning meetings have focused more so on capital improvements more than anything else. So maybe it could still be one meeting and to do all.
Well, we have other agencies that have needs and have to reach out to them. There's a lot that goes into a strategic planning session as opposed to one that focuses just on capital planning, but that's.
Whatever works for the board.
Right. Yeah, and having it a little tightly focused means that won't last quite as long. And we may not need a facilitator for that.
Right.
But also into that is a meeting with the school board. I mean, we have got to get together, I think, with the school board, not to dictate to them what to do, but to just kind of talk about how we can work better together.
Let's take this up after.
What they think is priority. As, we represent the people of the county. And they've got to be interested in what the people of the county think and what's important, what's a priority in education. Not just in controlling costs, but how to maximize the value of education.
Mr. Carter, I'll continue with.
Sure. Moving on, Finding River wastewater system, we've issued a contract to Patterson Construction Company out of Fredericksburg to repair the Route 56 Simcoe pumping station. Just over almost $40,000 worth of work. They're scheduled to begin work next week, the 18th. That pump station had gotten to a point of disrepair, and it's an essential component in the wastewater treatment system. So we really need to get this done. So I'm just happy to report that we're now in process with actually accomplishing that work. This is sort of scratch work on my behalf. I didn't speak to Candy about it, but as of the preliminary budget report for county operations through December, local revenues were about 50, local revenues, not all revenues, for about 53% of the budget amount. That's was encouraging. Hopefully that trend will continue to the end of the fiscal year. And then expenditures were about 56% of budget. But when you use there's various things that happen during the year. For example, the school board funding, DSS funding is just allocated, and it shows in the budget report as if the money's all been expended when it's just really been transferred over the school funding, the DSS fund. So if you didn't understand that and looking at it, you would think, how do we spend all that money through December? But in any event, just using January as a bellwether for predicting the next 6 months, I'll go out on a limb and say it's very possible that we still could have a yearly balance of a little bit over $1 million if we can manage it well. So that would actually be good news.
That would be great. Wow.
General reassessment is still in process. We sent a letter to Department of Taxation to have them certify the assessor, which is part of state law. But nothing really to report there. They're just in the early phases of doing the work to actually get the reassessment completed, which will be October, November, before we know a lot of information there. And next year's budget, we're still in process with trying to build the budget, get all the information, and it's probably February, early March, hopefully sooner, but that's typically where we land with presenting to the board. And we'll note that I'm on the Regional Jail Budget Committee, and I can already tell the board, there were 4 options to the committee last week. And fortunately, Elmore and Charlottesville agreed that we should take the less expensive option in presenting to the overall jail board when the budget comes forward, probably to them in March. But Nielsen's going to see an increase of about $225,000. So we'll be over for the first $1 million for the first time in the history of our membership in the regional jail.
Is that based on demographics or the amount of service that it
Prison
provides?
Prison days. Yeah, not to criticize our Commonwealth attorney, but Albemarle and Charlottesville have elected to use more electronic home monitoring and get people out of the jail as a deterrent to the virus, so to say, whereas we have not done that. And that hasn't really impacted us just 1 year over because the jail uses a 5-year average, but our population has trended up significantly. It used to be 6 or 7% annually. Now it's either, if I recall correctly, 11 or 15% of the overall jail population.
Some of that's because those liberal boards that run Albemarle and Charlottesville, they don't want to lock anybody up. So, slap them on the hand and go do it again.
Mr. Carter, a minute ago, you threw out 4 dates as potential dates. What were
Well,
they?
that's if Mr. Boyles responded and just said he would be available those dates, which were January 26th, I think it's Monday, the 29th, which is a Friday, and then either February 2nd or 12th.
I say we do the 29th. Let's do it in the morning. Chair,
Well,
how about we schedule it?
I guess you're going to discuss.
We'll discuss it.
All right.
Good.
Thank you. Okay. Board reports, Mr. Parr.
The council has not met since last, so I do not have a report.
TJPDC, we don't have too many crazy things other than trying to digest what 2021 looks like. I think the concern everybody really has is it's not the 2020, it's the 2021 and, the post-COVID and the impacts actually afterwards. Same struggles everywhere in terms of schools and kind of how they operate. There's no one right answer. Everybody's doing, 5 different versions of what they think is right, which, may be right. Some are learning different, some are not, and You know, I think that's been an interesting thing to see all the different approaches, even Charlottesville versus the rural context, and who's virtual and who's hybrid. You know, we talk about affordable housing. That is becoming an even more hot topic in the midst of this, as we've started to notice, as we talked about today, telecommunication and how people are able to operate from their household successfully. And of course, the importance of that, of broadband access to those households. We've talked about that being a huge piece. One item that's going to be interesting is talking about putting pressure on electric companies. Unlike Nelson County, we have an electric company that's cooperative in supplying the internet, but potentially other counties around maybe putting pressure on other utility companies via the SCC to make sure that internet is being provided to their clients. That'll be an interesting development. Criminal Justice Board, y'all guys got to see that presentation recently, and that's all I know there. And I guess today, this is my last day, so Dana takes that tomorrow. And all I can think of.
Thank you. Mr. Harvey?
I don't have nothing.
What was very important was what we dealt with today in terms of bonuses, that social services should be included in that. And I'm sure that Brad is here, who's chairman. He was very pleased. We continue to deal with the problem of foster children, a continuous problem, and drug abuse, et cetera. And it, you know, it's very interesting subject in terms of the jails, because the people in Charlottesville and in Albemarle County have been concerned that what would happen, that's happened in several places across the Commonwealth, is where there's been huge outbreaks of virus in certain jails, do not occur in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. And so to say that they don't want to put people in jail is not, it's not an accurate statement. They recognize that not everybody who gets put in jail, you know, is guilty, you know, innocent, and you know, we're not talking about prison, we're talking about jail here. You know, I just wanted to say that.
Okay. With Java, they continue to be extremely busy and extremely effective in terms of what they're doing. They continue to be great advocates for the elderly in our community, and Planning Commission did not meet last month, so I've got nothing to report from them. And that brings us up to appointments.
Ronald Moyer indicated he did not want to be reappointed to the Board of Zoning Appeals. And I reached out to Shelby Revere, who was the alternate on that board, and she indicated she'd like to be considered for his position. And Mary Cunningham has also indicated she'd like to be considered for that position. And I was thinking, if Shelby Revere is, if you all vote for her to replace Mr. Moyer, then the alternate position would be open. So that could be something to consider. The Java Council on Aging, Mary Cunningham indicated she would like to be reappointed. And Mary Cunningham also has indicated she'd like to be considered for the Agricultural and Forestal District Advisory Committee opening. And we also have an application from Sunny Taylor for the other open position on that committee.
Which committee is it?
The Agricultural and Forestal District Advisory Committee.
That's the one you're on, Skip, I think.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah. I will put in a vouch for Sunny Taylor for that ag position. If Mr. Chairman, if we can just knock that one out right now. You okay?
Let's look at all of them. We might be able to do it all at once.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to note that normally if there's an opening on the zoning appeals, it's gonna be an open bid to see who's interested in it, but Shelby has served as an alternate and has been pretty active as an alternate. Probably is certainly appropriate for her to fill that, and also appropriate for Mary Cunningham to be the alternate, since she's gonna get appointed in other places as well. So Grace's suggestion is well taken.
Planning commission is pretty important. I'm really kind of interested in their views.
Well, it's not really the planning commission, it's the BZA.
What?
It's the BZA that she's applied for,
Okay.
which is not the planning commission. So, I mean, the BZA can be active when called to be so.
Okay.
I'm fine with all of them.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
Yeah, I'm gonna throw all of them in there. Shelby Brugier taking Mr. Moyer's place, Mary Cunningham to take the alternate position. That'll be coming available. As well as I am suggesting Sunny L. Taylor to be part of the Ag Forest Advisory Committee, as well as Mary Cunningham.
Second.
Okay, you skipped Java, didn't you?
Yeah, also the reappointment of Mary Cunningham.
Oh, yes, same reappointment of Mary
John
Cunningham. I amend my motion.
Okay.
I'm in my second.
We have a motion and a second.
Mr. Barton,
Yes.
Mr. Harvey,
Yes.
Mr. Carr,
Yeah.
Mr. Rutherford.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes. Correspondence and directives, Mr. Barton.
No.
Mr. Harvey?
Come back.
Okay. Mr. Rutherford?
Yes, so I have received several emails in regards to the Firefly build out and how it's really impacted their lives, ranging all the way from the South District into the East District, especially down there in, getting into, hills and valleys that don't have any options. And I have to say the compliments have been spread to this board and, for our efforts in making sure that build out happens. And of course, the continued efforts of trying to expedite wherever we can. I think that was a wonderful conversation. I did have a correspondence in regards, and I wish Dylan was here and I'll outreach to her. Repeat offenders of junk cars in your front yard. That has been a continuous cycle with repeat offenders, in the Schuyler community, and trying to put teeth to something so that these guys can stop, clouding up these people's yards. I mean, some of it's encroaching, and genuinely it can be a health concern, having that many old mobiles in your front yard. So that's more conversations I'd like to have with Dylan as to how we can better police this. Sadly, we're at the whatever the courts decide, and how, they're always reasonable. They always give a 30-day extension, so that's just something's been a priority of mine that I'm gonna be talking to Dylan about. And other than that, I think the ag stuff, had correspondence with that, which I think is very exciting, and we'll talk about later. So, thank you, sir.
One thing about that, Jesse, scrap is up to $9 a hundred right now.
Is that good?
That's very good. It's been down as low as $3.
All right.
So I carried a van over the other day that brought $400.
Man,
You take the converter off and stuff like that.
make yourself $600-700.
Yeah, it's no excuse now when they say it's no market for it, because it is.
Yep.
And there's several people in the county that will come pick them up for you.
Mr. Parker?
Yeah, I've had a lot of people question, Jesse mentioned the Firefly, but I'm getting questions on an update on the CARES projects that we have and how the changing of the timeline may impact the changing of the construction schedule, and if at all or not, and in the 4 areas that we initially extended CARES funding, and then the additional area that expanded that. Do we know
Yes,
impact?
we had a conversation at the Broadband Authority on what that was looking like. So we sent a directive to Steve to get an update from Gary and see where it's at, what their priorities are and what timeframe, you know. I do know as it relates to the care money, even though we said end of December, what that meant was the money to be spent. So the backbone might be in place, but hookup's not completed.
It was my understanding that one of the conditions was that at least one person had to be hooked up by December 31st. Now, that was before the timeline got extended.
I don't think we did that.
Okay.
I don't think as a broadband authority, I don't. Well, that one, the CARES Act money.
No, I was told that was a condition of the first wave of money.
The 1.25.
Yes, that at least one person, but
I don't know.
But again, we don't know, and we would like to know.
Yeah, so, yeah, we will continue that
I'm going to follow up,
directive.
and then I'll submit that to the board as well as the NCDA.
Thank you.
Tommy? Okay. So, I guess I'll do this as other business. I am, really interested in, as I mentioned earlier, having a board work session, the week of January 25th, focus on capital planning. A joint meeting with the school board the week of February 1st. That would give us both those meetings in place before our next board meeting. And if we were to look at a large-scale strategic planning meeting, we could do that sometime, maybe post-budget. If pre-budget is a better idea and the board wants to do that, I'm happy to do it sooner. But it seems like that might be the best way to get our focus both on capital planning and I would request from Dr. Eagle, Mr. Cheap, and ourselves as to what the agenda might be for the joint meeting, and try to work out a condensed agenda that would not take up, more than a half a day. So that's what I would like to do if the board would thinks that's a good idea.
You looking up at letting some of them do it virtual?
Well, if the only way that they can do it is to do it virtually, I would say we should probably do it anyway. Although I would certainly hope that everybody could be in person.
Yeah, I mean,
We
if I
could do
can't
it
sit
in an
down and look
area.
at them, then hell, I ain't coming.
Yeah, I think that meeting in person would certainly be preferable. We do it as a board.
We definitely
The
got space.
school board does it as a board.
That we can meet, that we can space people 20 feet apart.
I agree with that.
Point of inquiry, when do you expect the budget? I remember you mentioned it in your
Late February, early March.
late February, early March. So,
Maybe mid-March.
I'd like to do both those things within a week time span. That way our brains don't, forget what we just talked about. You know what I'm saying? It's like do the 29th and do your first week, and
I know you're talking about the 29th.
that would be like a work session via just our board.
Yeah, okay. So let's look at that first.
Name those chip dates again, because I think Chip being the moderators would be an excellent.
26th, 29th, 2nd, 12th.
26, 29.
Thank you. I put that aside.
2nd or 12th.
26 or 29 are both open dates for me.
You did.
Yeah.
Okay?
We're gonna meet the school board though, too. I don't want.
It's two separate.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to have a facilitator for that meeting? Or do we
I
just want
would like
focus
to.
on
I really would.
Okay, and still focus on capital?
I think capital, yeah. I
Okay.
think that would be healthy to have that third person in there.
Okay. Gives me a chance to be more active.
There you go. So how about the 29th? I think that would work best for
It's a Friday.
Friday the 29th.
And we could do like a late morning start and go till dinner time.
Okay.
All right,
And then,
what time do you want to do? You want to do like 11 a.m., 10 a.m.?
let's,
They need time to set up.
can we do after lunch?
We can
We're
do,
we're only doing capital stuff. It's not
yeah, let's just do 1
a
o'clock.
long
then.
day. Let's do 1 o'clock after lunch.
Whatever works for y'all.
Um, Old boardroom is fine. Old boardroom is fine. Okay. So following week, first week of February, and Dr. Eagle might need some assistance from you on this. I'm actually available all week with the exception of Thursday morning. So, anybody have any preferences?
Thursday evening, I have a TJPDC meeting, so I'd like to.
This would be the this
Oh, morning.
would be a joint meeting with the
Well,
school board.
it'd be in the evening though.
When I talked to Mr. Cheap, he said the Tuesdays are a particularly good day for the school board.
Groundhog Day.
We can keep doing it over and over. Tuesday the 2nd?
I like that day.
Yes.
So if I may, I don't mean to be the contrarian. When the two boards meet, is it just to establish priorities for capital improvements?
I believe that when the school boards meet, that the agenda might be broader than just,
Broader in what respect?
well, there might be other items besides capital needs that might be part of the agenda. It would be good for, I believe, Dr. Eagle, myself, and Mr. Cheap to get together to help with the agenda with the input from the board here, what things that y'all want to make sure that, we get covered there.
So my question is, for the board, just for your consideration, without seeing either the county's budget request, which if we met with you all and you set priorities we try to build into the budget before it's presented, without knowing the school board's budget request, how will you agree to any capital improvements ahead of seeing that information?
I don't think that's the purpose of the meeting.
Well, that's my question. What's the purpose of the meeting?
The purpose of the meeting is to exchange ideas and to create collegiality and a feeling that we're both working in the same direction. We both want the same thing. We understand their difficulties and they understand our difficulties without being specific and having to make decisions, and just interacting.
Yeah, considering the budget, I believe there's a budget work session scheduled for end of January for the budget.
Yeah, 28th.
So they will have already hashed out some preliminaries on their budget. If they have particular concerns, or ideas, they can bring them to us for our responses or concerns we might have. And it could inform both of us going forward in the budget, as well as as Mr. Barton said,
With
develop a better
education-
rapport in terms of.
With
how
education,
we-
it always is this or that. We want to spend money here. No. It can be more complicated than that.
If I may, for the county staff, it comes down to dollars and cents.
Well, that's your job. That's your job, and you're very helpful in doing that.
I mean,
But
certainly happy to
deciding
be-
dollars and cents,
But
you don't have to be there if you don't want to be. If you don't want to have an insight into what the people on the boards are thinking, that's your decision. But I would think you would want to.
That's ridiculous.
You would want to. Of course you want to.
So if we were to meet
I
on,
just think the board should be pragmatic in its approach. If you go and just say niceties, where is that gonna get you?
Pragmatism is an interesting word. It's really a critical word for me in terms of you do what works.
I understand. I just want to have a productive outcomes, not just we go and be nice to each other.
Well, what you would consider to be a productive, in your mind, might not be productive in my mind, or someone else there. We all might have different perspectives,
At the end of the day, you decide.
different ways of seeing things.
Groundhog Day.
All right, so, we should, if we're looking at the second, we're looking at maybe a 3-hour meeting on the second.
What time do your people get off work?
Yeah, I was gonna say, usually, well, the last joint meeting we had was at 3, if you recall.
I thought it was like 5.
So in the afternoon, they don't get off till later, obviously, but many people are working also. So if they have a plan, that they can plan it out, and be a part of it. But yeah, usually it's an evening, and in the past, we've had to keep them, within a relative amount of time.
Well, it might be ideal to do 3 to 6, but if that doesn't work for a majority of the
Just do
school board
after,
members, we should do,
You can adjust that.
Yeah, 4 to 7. maybe.
Well, you would think if it was something as important we was talking about, that they would make arrangements,
Sure, I agree.
you know.
And I think, we're gonna, I'm gonna propose that date to them and ask them, if that would work.
okay. So we can finalize that later as well as a process for us to get together and talk about the agenda.
Yes, appreciate that.
Okay. Okay, that's all I had for other business. And Mr. Carter, we should get together as well. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
No,
No.
What am I missing?
We have other business.
I'm sorry?
we're gonna discuss the presentation we had today.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry. This is the discussion on the ag building?
Yeah.
Okay.
What actually needs to happen is they're trying to, we need to put a formal group together, first of all. And have representative of our board and staff if we feel sometimes it's needed. And then some people from, but we've got to decide on what size board we want. Because you have a 40-member board, you ain't gonna get nothing done. But this is gonna be the main board that makes most of the decisions.
This is more of a planning.
Yeah, I
This
think
is
at
not
this
a-
point,
This isn't a
they're just
government.
trying to get a bunch of people together that would be stakeholders to come up with a concept.
Yeah.
And then once that is all, figured out, then appoint a 9-member board or something smaller that's manageable as a board of directors. But I think at this point, they're trying to just get a group together. But the big picture of what they're looking at, he showed you what they're doing in Chatham, is almost picture a combination of Expo Land in Fishersville with a livestock facility and some career and technical training opportunities with meeting rooms and reception halls. That's the kind of big picture, long-term facility that they're looking at. But with their main focus is extending farm and career education for the community, whether it's primary, secondary, adult, and then having the facilities for meetings and different things that we could have. The fair could be hosted at that facility, for example. But the things being thrown around are, farm education opportunities, pulling in our wineries, breweries, distilleries, cideries, and training kids for those opportunities. But at this point, they're trying to bring in members of the Ag Committee, which is the starting point of this concept. Bringing in members from both Amherst and Nelson Board of Supervisors, which I would like to volunteer if no one else, if no one objects. Members from the public school community. I know at the meeting we were at last night, the director of CTE in Amherst, I think he was there. We want to pull in a representative maybe from community colleges, private sector, like the 151 co-op, Farm Bureau, of course, the Farm Bureau board. But that's where they are at this point, to kind of come up with a vision, and they also want to include representatives from engineering firm that could help design the space, and the best use of the space. And I know that, one in particular was thrown around, on one name, but, from that group, come up with a vision, have an engineering firm do a study and come back with some best uses of the property and ways to make this happen, then form a formal committee of board of directors to hone in the vision and start the process of grants and fundraising and that type of thing. I think that's where we are at this point, and really what they're looking for is they have a financial commitment and support from Amherst County Board. They're looking for us to go in with them to fund the study.
Yeah.
To get started.
And to add on to that, because I had a discussion with the Amherst board rep, and I'm not sure what y'all talked about, so I might be.
They weren't there last.
They weren't there.
Because they had a presentation separate.
Right. So what I believe would be wise is if two members of ours with Mr. Carter and two of theirs, which was a discussion I had with them, we meet and talk and kind of get an idea after we both have this presentation. I think that would be a healthy step. And of course, as we get to the streaming process of, I think it's a great concept, guys. I think, there's a lot of opportunity here. And Dr. Eagle, we're going to need y'all to hop on board with this.
Oh, most definitely, I love it.
Yeah.
Anybody wearing Virginia Tech mask.
So, and I think that would be a great next step between the two governing bodies to have that meeting 2-on-2 with county staff, so that there's some sense of like who's going to be, we're serious in this and both parties are serious in this.
But at the same time, I think we need to go into this understanding that I don't think the expectation is for this to be a county government run concept. This is its own separate entity outside of county government,
just
with us supporting it, and having a representative on it, on that board, of course. But they do not want this to be government.
So I would like to participate in this wherever possible, since career technical education has always been near and dear to my heart. So.
You know what Amherst contributed towards the
Nothing.
study?
Nothing.
There isn't a dollar amount assigned to it. It's to fund the study.
Yeah.
The study they think is gonna cost about 15 to 20,000.
That's about right.
So they're asking half from us and.
Yeah. And one thing I'd like to bring in is the planning districts, because they can help subsidize some of that. If we get Region 2000 TJPDC, they can help expedite some of those things and offset some costs, don't you think, Steve?
I'm sure they can be a resource.
Yeah.
One thing that's unique in this thing is we're in one planning district and they in a different. And they see that could be a helpful thing because we're getting together regionally and two different.
Yeah, the Go Virginia money.
Go Virginia.
Go Virginia money is a big pot of money
Yeah,
between.
the more you can visualize a project, the better you have access to Go Virginia funding.
You do Nelson, Rockbridge, Amherst, holy cow.
Mathematics.
Rockbridge has already got theirs.
Yeah.
And Rockbridge is.
Well, if they throw their name in and we get an extra $1 million.
Ernie, I think the suggestion of David and Jess would be a great suggestion to
I agree.
be our contact, and Steve, whenever, their county administrator was there last night.
Okay, keep us posted.
Yeah, all right. Well, David will be the lead on
And
this.
the other thing is I'd like to make a motion that we fund up to the, I reckon, $15,000?
I mean, they, just remember what they said though, that was for one study and then the other one, and when we were talking, they threw out that it could be 50. I don't remember, there were two things we were talking about last night, studying.
The problem is you've got to start somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
And, the one that they were talking about working with is Hurt and Profit, and they are the ones that did the Chatham. So they have
They've
all
already
that,
built one of these and learned all the mistakes.
all that expertise there, and, it's a good thing, but I mean, my lord, but
So I have just one more thing before we
yeah, I got a
adjourn.
couple
Oh, we,
things to say.
Oh, okay.
yeah, and we need to make a motion to vote on this, don't we?
Well, if we're gonna dedicate funds, we are.
I would suggest we do up to, and then whatever plans we see that staff share it, make sure there's some kind of blessing in it.
I mean, can we make the motion without putting a dollar amount, but that we contact, cooperate with Amherst County, board to fund this preliminary study?
You need to put a figure, not to exceed.
Yeah,
Say
I-
up to 20.
I would think that it's more appropriate to, have a little more depth of thought behind it.
Yeah.
Which is like to not pass a money amount now, but to get some people together and talk about it and find out who's doing the study, how much it's gonna cost, and then you can ask for money. And I'm happy to help facilitate that, but
If the board's gonna meet again later this month.
Right.
We could get the information between the two counties and maybe even confer with Hurt and Proctor to get an estimate or whoever, and then bring it right back.
So at this point, is it safe to assume we have consensus as a board to greenlight the Amherst Ag Committee to work with the Amherst and Nelson County administrators to move forward in
Figuring something
looking
out.
at specifics?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I can pass that along to the committee. Yeah. Right? Sounds good to me.
It's a big undertaking, and,
I mean, this is something that it's 15 years down the road, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not something that we're looking to have the county fair next year on this property. This is a long-term.
well, the problem is that somebody's gonna do something about the land because the owner of the land is not opposed to this land. for
Well,
15
we are
years.
lucky that the owner of the land is very excited about this potential for the project. He's willing, he's sitting on it, waiting to hear from this project. And correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think he thinks it could be 15 years.
No, I'm not saying 15 years before we do something. I'm saying 15 years before you have a building that's hosting an event.
Right.
It could be that long before something happens, before the vision is realized, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying 15 years before.
It's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that particular landowner is gonna be very flexible, or is very interested in the success of this, because his farmer roots go back forever and ever. So,
Okay.
it might be named after him.
I'll report back to the ag committee, that they can start looking at the specifics and get back to us.
anything else?
Tommy had.
Is there any word on what's going on with the health department? Are we doing anything, or it's on hold?
Are they doing anything?
They have an extension till next December at the medical center, but beyond that, the board, you haven't given us any direction to do anything, and so it's just, the Department of General Services just has this open solicitation for proposals. And then it's, at least on June, ultimately, from what the DGS person told me, staff told me, is that ultimately the health departments can say yay or nay. So that's sort of where it is.
Well, I mean, we keep doing this, and
Well, that could be part of the board's capital improvement discussion. Do you want to build a building or not?
well, but if we're gonna reach to go at the end, I mean, I guess we need to present something, and the other group needs to present something and then the health department needs to tell us yay or nay about who they want to do.
Right, as, at least related to you, my discussion with the DGS coordinator, yeah, it's really not the county who decides, it's the state.
No, exactly.
Well, I think we could have this discussion at the
I do think
capital meeting.
that,
Sure.
they're reluctant to say much, but the input I received from both the health district and the state is, why doesn't the county do something? I mean, I'm just being honest about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've been accused of everything under the sun, and, you know, if they think they can handle it, then why don't they move on it?
Well, my understanding is that, that the Heritage Center, that they're going forward with a proposal, I guess an official proposal for the health department from the Heritage Center. But
Well, then,
Hasn't happened yet,
but then the single one decider of that is, the director of the health department.
That's
Well,
what we've been told.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but certainly if we have, desires or plans and let them know about it, that would be, that would weigh in terms of their
It
decision.
doesn't happen overnight, so,
Right.
you know, there's a lot of planning goes into it, money, where's the money coming from? And David and I've been down and met with them, and I don't see if anything has moved since then.
Well, let's make sure this is on the agenda. We can talk more about it in depth,
Well, maybe.
find out where they are.
Well, maybe you need to talk to them.
Well, I have.
Well, I mean, if you're expecting something out of the county, we need to know now that, I'm gonna tell you what, with they're having some pretty good staff, it's gonna be hard to complete it. And I'm not, I don't think we need to do all that and then let them take it out there. I mean, but everybody here has been chewed out and cussed and everything else. I mean, talked to very badly. My thing is, if you want to take it and go.
Mhm.
But don't, we can't wait and do it now and say, okay, June, we're gonna build the building.
Right. Yeah, if I may, I just want to reiterate, because I've been on the receiving end of some of that stuff. The board will not decide this unless you decide to make a proposal. The state decides.
And at this point, I think if they're wanting to do a proposal, then I'd rather not be involved in it right now.
Well, if that's, I
I don't want
I don't think that's bad thinking.
I don't want
But-
some
But it would
competitive-
make sense, it would make sense for us to decide what we would like to see happen and where we'd like to see it happen.
Well,
And
I
that-
think
and
before we go
without-
down that
without,
road,
excuse me, without actually, making any commitment, saying, either we would support their proposal or we have another route that we think might work. But regardless, I think that it would serve us to discuss this more in depth, with what you're saying and what y'all are saying.
Now, this is more probably discussion for this capital improvements
Yes.
meeting, but I'll just note to the board that, you've got PSS and modular buildings that are approaching probably 20 years old, and they don't have any more space. Health department, what's gonna be done with that? The courthouse, we have no more space either. And that's a serious consideration moving forward. And right now, unless you add a ton of employees, we're okay, but we can't really add anything. And we had to stretch just to find a place for the assessors and tell the schools, well, you can't use some of this meeting space because it's not available anymore.
But you have long-term and you have short-term. The health department is on a tight timeline.
Mhm.
Something is gonna have to develop for them. A short-term solution might be different from a long-term solution, but you could link them together.
They've been on a much tighter schedule in the past.
Well, they kicked it down the road.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but when they keep working with us, give us more time out there, that's helped. But I mean, again, here we are, I'd say a couple of years later, and we're no different from what we were 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's not our problem.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. So I have one more thing, which I should have brought up earlier, but I didn't. I apologize for it. I wanted to commend Janet Turner Giles, who a few months ago was voted the president of the Virginia School Board Association, which is a big place for someone from Nelson County to be represented. You know, they promote public education, they're advocates, they do training for boards and for staff, they provide all sorts of services, and they've been very busy with COVID-19, obviously. And Janet's been, you know, providing leadership and all that, and I wanted to commend her for doing that and for being that point person in that important position. And
So I second.
just
Want to
a,
commend her, and I second it.
thank you. I would, for promotion to adjourn.
I make the motion to adjourn. Are we continuing or adjourning?
Are we commending her? I vote.
I was just commending her by personal commendation.
Why don't we do it by vote?
What are we voting on?
To commend her for her representing Nelson County within the state
I mean,
and the board. You could probably help us with this. Dr. Eagle.
What do we do? I'm sorry.
Well, if we wanted to commend Janet for her president of the school, how would we do it?
For being on the VSBA board.
Yeah.
And she's not present, I apologize. Yes, I mean, a simple gesture.
Just for being the president.
Yeah, that was,
you can tell her congratulations.
Right.
There we go.
right.
Congratulations. I think that's good. We all say
I think,
congratulations.
I mean, I don't think we need to take a vote on it,
Not necessarily that.
but, thank you.
Tell her we said congratulations.
I will tell her to.
Can I,
We have a motion?
am I continuing or adjourning?
Adjourning.
Adjourning? Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
We have a second?
Second.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Barton?
Yes.
Mr. Hardy?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Where's this thing about me being off the social welfare?
Off the what?
From what, where did that come from?
Well, Skip,
Jesse had mentioned that he wanted to be on.
Oh,
it's something I hadn't done yet.
well, you know, but I think in this particular case, is my previous experience and just learning about it in this first year, that I'd be a good person on it.
It's also better to talk about those things before the meeting.
Yeah.
So there aren't any surprises. That's it.